It's over. Wait, what's going on?
Miracle draw from Wesley So.
Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my mind.
MVL acing the opening. There's just no way. Oh, what an idea by MVL.
The power stretch.
That is evil.
Rooksy 2 immediately.
Oh my god! What in the world?
Rooksy 1, he's blundered his rook.
It is a mouse slip.
This is anyone's game. Oh, Jan blunders.
And this is over. Can you believe it?
Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again.
Magnus Magic. He's done it again.
Magnus is now worse. Knight takes sheet 2.
And it is a draw.
This is one of the craziest CCT games I've ever seen.
Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat.
Checkmate in 1 coming in. These are the last.
Oh, and he's losing.
And Magnus cannot believe it. He's so mad at himself.
Wow, you never see this. Absolute hats off.
We are back in the Champions Chess Tour. This is the CrunchLabs Masters, the third event of 4 here in the Champions Chess Tour. I'm Robert Hess. Alongside me is an Olympiad gold medalist, Grandmaster David Howell. David, how pumped are you that we're back?
I'm excited, Robert. It's great to be back with you. It's been ages. It's been a while. And I was watching the play-ins with a lot of excitement. So much was going down, and we're left with a really stellar cast of players. So I can't wait to get started.
Me neither. And let's just revisit where we've been and where we're set to go, because this is the third event of 4. And as we see on the tour schedule, this is a year-long affair. We started in January, ended in February with the Chess Masters. Then we got the Chess.com Classic. And here we have the CrunchLabs Masters before September/October. We get the 4th event. And last, but certainly not least, we get the finals, the live finals in December. That will be an exciting clash between 8 competitors who will be very worthy of their spot in the final. So David, we already know 2 tickets that have been stamped to the season and finals. That was Magnus Carlsen by winning the Chess Masters. Alireza Firouzja one-upped him in the Chess.com Classic. Who will it be in event number 3?
Oh, Robert, normally we would say Magnus, Firouzja, they'd be heavy favorites to win another event, but this time the field is so open, so many big players. I mean, you know it, everyone knows it. The Champions Chess Tour, it's my favorite event, and yeah, I'm pretty sure these 8 players, they're going to live up to that this time around.
I did some quick math, and as we look at the bracket, the average FIDE rating of these 8 participants, 2760. You heard that right. 2760. As we start at the top, we have the reigning champion, let's call him that, the winner of the previous event, Alireza Firouzja. He doubled down. He beat Magnus Carlsen in consecutive matches to take that title. Look at his first round matchup, David. Fabiano Caruana versus Alireza Firouzja at the top. We also have Magnus Carlsen as Jan Nepomniachtchi, a world championship rematch. Not to be outdone, Jan Krzysztof Duda, Wesley So, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Dmitry Andreikin. Wherever you look, it's a clash of super grandmasters.
Yeah, I've got to say that was some quick math. I'm very, very impressed. And it's not every day you see a tournament where Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is the lowest seed by FIDE rating. So, I mean, that just speaks to how strong it is, how open the field is. It's just about who's going to be more in form over the next few days.
Yeah, and we know how strong the top division is, but the Champions Chess Tour in general has a lot of depth to it. It's not just the top division. Division 2 and Division 3, they feature many strong players, and as we look back to what happened in the latest event, Alireza Firouzja, we know he took the crown in the top division of the Chess.com Classic. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, he stamped his ticket to the top division, this time by winning Division 2, and Dmitry Andreikin beat Fedoseev yesterday in the knockout to get here. He sent Fedoseev down to Division 2, but Andreikin, he won Division 3 of the latest event. That's how strong the third division is, David. That's where Dmitry Andreikin found himself.
That's right. I was super impressed last time when Dmitry Andreikin beat Niels Grandelius in the Division 3 final. He got through again yesterday, and he's here to make his mark. Don't write him off. He might be a lesser-known name for some of the viewers out there, but he has a lot of pedigree, a former candidate. He got to the final of the World Cup once, and big rapid online specialist.
Yeah, that's the thing, is he's capable, and no matter what the type control is, even bullet. And a reminder to everybody that you can go to chess.com/events yourself to watch the action in all three divisions. We are going to be showcasing the top division, but you won't want to miss out as Hikaru Nakamura finds himself in the second division alongside the likes of Vladimir Krumnik and many others. So without further ado, let's bring up the tour standings because, as mentioned, two players, they already know they'll be in the finals, Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja. They're at the top there. They won an event and was second in the other. But who else will join them, David? Vincent Keimer, he entered the CrunchLabs Masters in third, but I haven't seen him. He's busy playing over the board.
That's right. The field is so open. It's all about those tour points now. People will be jockeying for position. Every game matters. Division 2, Division 3, so much on the line. But yeah, it does look great for the likes of Vincent Keimer, even in his absence, but it gives an opportunity to some of the others. Denis Lazovic in 4th place, not in Division 1 this time. For those like Nepomniachtchi, Vachier-Lagrave, this is their chance to stamp their mark. And in the top 20, not even Fabiano Caruana. Maybe this is his event, Robert.
Yeah, look at this, just from top to bottom of these things. Grishuk down there in 20th place, he still have a shot to find his way to the season end finals because 8 players make their way. So shout out again to Julius Baer, the official wealth management partner of the Champions Chess Tour, for bringing us these tour standings through 2 of 4 events. But now it's time for the third event. And David, we just have great matchups no matter where we look. But whenever we talk chess, we want to start with Magnus Carlsen and his first matchup here in the winner's bracket, none other than Jan Nepomniachtchi, his former foe, everlong foe. I don't know what to call him, but these two have played each other many times.
Frenemies, Robert. They're frenemies. They know each other so well. They grew up together. They used to work on chess together. Of course, they played each other in 2021, as you mentioned, the World Championship match. But in recent times, it is Magnus with the superior head-to-head, especially in rapid chess. You see all of their rapid games there. 21 wins for Magnus, 10 for Nepomniachtchi. This is over the board and online. But recent history, Magnus's favor. Speed Chess Championship and on the Champions Chess Tour.
Magnus Carlsen usually has a winning record against his many opponents. That's just how strong he has been for so long now. But Jan Nepomniachtchi, he can test Magnus. You see some close matchups between 2.5, 1.5 in Magnus's favor. If just 1 or 2 things go differently, that could turn the tides for Jan. We know how quickly he plays. And David, he looked exceptionally strong in the play-ins and then in the match phase.
Yeah. Look at him, Robert. He looks good to go, ready. All of that, well, I'm not sure what to call it, memorabilia on the wall there. He looks in the zone, and as you mentioned, in the play-ins, he did look in sparkling form. I actually think this is going to be close. I think Jan's been playing extremely well recently, and for Magnus, we know it's been a bit of a tough week. So, yeah, this one we're going to be keeping a firm eye on this match.
For sure. Condolences out to the entire Carlsen family going through so much. We do wish them the best. It's so great to see Magnus playing, but of course there's so much more going on behind the scenes. And for Jan Nepomniachtchi, he knows what's ahead of him. Magnus Carlsen, no matter what he's going through, is always going to be an absolutely ferocious opponent. No matter the swords on the wall behind him, Jan Nepomniachtchi, he took down some great opposition on the way to making this top division. But there is no greater opposition in chess than Magnus Carlsen.
That's right, and this was his successful run in the play-ins. Jan Nepomniachtchi, very, very solid. He nearly never loses. We saw that in the candidates tournament earlier this year, and he picked up 3 wins there as well in the back half of the play-ins there. And yeah, just an impressive player, Robert. Opening repertoire, speed that kills. He's got it all in his locker. Just needs a bit of luck maybe against Magnus today as well.
Well, you mentioned speedy players and somebody who, has shown that he can stand the test of Magnus Carlsen. It's this person right here in front of you, Alireza Firouzja. He's just waiting. He's sitting here getting set for the CrunchLabs Masters, but he's won the previous leg. The Chess.com Classic, that went Alireza's way. And let's not forget that Alireza plays Fabiano Caruana in the first match. He might lose that match. I mean, that's a toss-up. But he did lose the first match in the Chess.com Classic, and after that L against Duda, those are all dubs, David, and look who he beat to take home the title.
Not bad at all. Like you said, that's why we love the double elimination format. That's kind of proof that it does work, it can work, and Firouzja there just stepping up his game, moving through the gears day by day, and nearly nobody is capable of beating Magnus Carlsen once, let alone twice in a match. Impressive stuff. And today, Firouzja meets another informed player, Fabiano Caruana. We know what he did in Croatia recently in the Grand Chess Tour, so that is going to be a fun matchup to follow.
Fabiano on the Grand Chess Tour seems unstoppable. The time control is a bit different here in this online format in the Champions Chess Tour, so we should let everybody in on that not so well kept secret that this is 10 minutes plus 2 seconds added per move. That increment is necessary when you get in time trouble. 2.5 points wins the match. The winner, they move on. They stay in the winner's bracket. They have 2 lives. They move to the semifinals. The losers, they drop down to the loser's bracket where they're on their final life and they have shorter matches in the loser's bracket. We get that Armageddon with bidding if tiebreaks are necessary for the 2-2 split. David, we know the fans, they love the Armageddon. The players, it stresses them out a little bit.
That is for sure. It's literally the end of the road often for some of the players, and no time to think, no time to blink. We'll get Armageddons at some point this tournament, that is for sure. But in the meantime, the players are getting ready. Game starting any moment now, Robert, as we see Jan-Krzysztof Duda and Wesley So prepare for battle.
We're so spoiled that we haven't even spoken about Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who beat Alireza in their first match in the Chess.com Classic, and Wesley So, who made it all the way through to the live finals and was dominant in the group stage back in Toronto in December 2023. So these two players, they have what it takes truly to win this crown. Doesn't matter that we talked about Alireza, Magnus, Fabi, Jan. Everyone in this field can truly win. David, that's how treated we are, how delighted everyone should be to see the 8 Super Grandmasters go at it in this CrunchLabs Masters.
Yeah, spoiled. That is the word of the day. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Dmitry and Draken, 2 of the 1990 generation, back at battle. Another pair who know each other extremely well. On paper, the underdogs, but very, very capable. And they all look good to go. Robert, do you think it's a benefit that some of the players have been warming up in the play-ins over the last few days, or do you think freshness is going to be the key for the others?
I'm always curious about that, and I think that playing the play-ins can be very helpful. You see, Fabiano Caruana, he had to slug his way into the field. Alireza Firouzja, he got to sit his way into it because he won the previous leg. And Fabiano has shown tremendous form in the quicker time controls. You mentioned the Grand Chess Tour. Even in the play-in, in the Swiss part, and then the matches, he looked very powerful. He did blunder a pawn in that last game against his second, Gregorio Parin. But David, we know what Fabiano brings. And, did we know he'll bring a Sicilian to this first matchup?
Yeah, Fabi trying to start in the most dynamic way possible with a Sicilian, but no open Sicilian, no fireworks there. Firouzja chooses a check, bishop b5 check, and a4. This is known to be a positional approach, Robert. So Fabi not quite getting what he wanted, but he must be brimming with confidence. Like we mentioned, the Grand Chess Tour, that was just phenomenal. Seeing him go, that was Fabi just in the flow.
Yeah, Fabi has been feeling it, at least in the quicker time controls. Of course, the last turn of the candidates that hurt him, you could see it on his face, that draw with Jan Nepomniachtchi. Then in the Grand Chess Tour Classical event, he lost that final round to Anish Giri. But as the time control has sped up, Fabiano has brought his full might. And look at this. I mean, this opening, it's not very typical at the highest level. But David, Black has good control with those pawns. Every piece for Black along the third rank or less advanced than that. And for White, gaining precious space in the center. But those pawns for Black, they're very hard to actually pile up on an attack. So no true weaknesses in Fabiano's camp.
That's right. Black maybe slightly cramped, but super solid. And this last move, not going for the hedgehog, everything parked on the 6th rank, instead fixing the central pawns. He's got to target the white e4 pawn, a bit vulnerable. The white queen, I've never understood this, Robert. The white queen looks so clumsily placed on this square, blocking her dark square bishop. But I'm sure the players have studied this one before. I have seen the likes of Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So employ this as white. It's supposed to be very positional, a bit of maneuvering now. The white knight often drops back around to c4, a nice perch with which to attack Black's backward pawn. But very solid start to this game, ultimately. And 2 of the most informed players. There we go. Firouzja quickly dropping his knight back.
You called it. Great plan. Just trying to take one step back, to go 2 steps forward, that c4 square, it's juicy. b6 and d6 will become targets. So Alireza, he understands what's needed in this position. And for Fabiano, he does need to be careful, because I know d6 to d5, they always tell you in the Sicilian and Najdorfs, if you can make that pawn break, it's often what black wants to do, but you have to time it correctly, especially when there was a rook and a queen on the same line, at least before the black queen went to c7.
Yeah, so getting ready to break out potentially. Firouzja has to ponder what to do with his pieces. Does he jump out with his knight? There we go. He does very quickly. He still needs to solve the problem of his dark square bishop. Yeah, don't try this at home, anyone, because often you do get a bit stuck in terms of development, but it looks like he will be in time, maybe with his bishop coming out via this diagonal to finish development and look forward to the future with confidence. Who would you pick here, Robert, at these early stages?
I think we just have a true clash on our hands, because black is solid, white getting a little more activity, at least for the time being, but I just don't see how white is able to crash through. Yeah, b3, bishop a3, these are natural ideas for white to develop and poke at those pawns on the 6th rank, but a black knight could land on c5, and you mentioned it earlier, David, the e4 pawn is also a bit tender, so both sides, they'll need to look out for their pawns, and that makes this anyone's battle. So while Alireza sits and thinks, why don't we head to our bird's eye view, because we'll say it forever, pretty much, that this is an event with 8 super grandmasters, an average rating of 2760 FIDE. So David, where do your eyes take you as we look at the 4 boards?
Oh, wow. It's early stages everywhere. It's nice to see some Sicilians, though. It looks like we've got 3 open Sicilians, or positions that pretty much evolved along those lines, and one that's maybe a bit more traditional. Okay, I'm going to say Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi. It's very early days there, but just a brief check-in, because that is probably the match that everyone at home will be asking for. Nothing too much has happened yet, Robert. Again, very similar pawn structure to that last game we saw with black. Very solid, no weaknesses, but this time black having pawns kind of on the 6th rank rather than having committed one in the center. And Magnus, I've seen him employ this before. He's got all of his pieces really centralized. He's going to go for a bit of a clamp, a bit of a bind, and maybe a grind later on. Okay, I'm going to ask it again. Who do you prefer in this game, early days?
I like white just because black does feel a little bit cramped, though I tend to like this d6, e6 pawn structure, because I feel like a lot of players, not Magnus Carlsen, not Jan Nepomniachtchi, but players who aren't so experienced in these variations, they always want to lash out with f4, f5 as soon as possible, go for a checkmate, try to break open the position, but that has a drawback. If you push a pawn to f5, look at that e5 square, for example, you will not be able to control it with any pawn. So every time you push a pawn, think about the squares that are left behind. And for now, what Magnus needs to look at is his bishop on c4. It's directly under attack. He's deciding, where does it belong? Can I push my pawn to b3? No, let's just bring the bishop back to b3 to safety. So David, after I said all that, do you actually think that Magnus has a slight edge, or do you think that Jan has done everything he needed to stabilize out the opening?
Yeah, I mean, if it was anyone else, I would probably say it's just totally equal, but I know Magnus loves this exact pawn structure, especially when he gets his pawn forward to a5. It might look innocuous here, but for everyone at home, actually controlling enemy squares in the opponent's territory can be extremely useful. b6 will be a launch pad, maybe for white's bishop, maybe later for a white knight. If a knight ever posts up on that square, it could be really dangerous for black. But yeah, for now, Jan hasn't done anything too drastic, done anything too committal. Feels like he should be fine. But yeah, I would slightly prefer Magnus's cause here. First, he has a question to answer, a hit on the e4 pawn, but he can deal with this by simply protecting with a pawn. He can even kick back the black queen. Either way, choice galore. Knowing Magnus, he might even think of bringing his rook across. That black queen is almost trapped. So yeah, this is where things might start heating up, Robert.
I was thinking the same. Rook a4 was one of those clever moves that's not subtle at all. Like, I'm protecting the e4 pawn and also trying to trap your queen, because the queen on c6, that's not a typical square for it. So I don't think Jan was thrilled to recapture with the queen, but he probably didn't like that if the bishop took back on c6, he was probably feeling a little bit passive, and that dark square bishop for white would have quickly landed on b6 with tempo. So I do like Magnus's position. I feel like even now bishop b6 does come to mind, but then black plays bishop to d8. Not exactly the most thrilling events there, but bishop a4 will always be in the air. You pointed that move out. Black does need to be careful about that kind of idea.
Yeah, Magnus here, spending a bit of time for the first real occasion on this game, just trying to find a way to maybe get the initiative to start setting those threats, maybe a bit of calculation for the first time. But yeah, I think this is definitely one that will heat up. These types of positions, they never kind of stay too balanced for too long. So yeah, maybe want to check back in on a bit later, Robert.
Sure. So why don't we just go straight to the MVL versus on Draken game, because we haven't looked over there, and we know Maxime is capable of winning an entire event because he did just that in the 2023 season. He won the 6th and final event. There were 6 events a year ago, and that qualified him for the finals. He beat Magnus Carlsen twice in a row, like Alireza Firouzja, his French compatriot, just did that. So as we look into this position, David, we have a day of Sicilian structures, but this one is quite different from the previous games we've seen.
That's right. The white pawn is the big difference here. The pawn on d5, which actually occupies a very nice outpost that Magnus has in his position. Pretty much if you put the pawn back on e4, we get a similar structure and similar themes ideas. Here, white does have the bishop pair. That's the one kind of ace up his sleeve, potentially. But there's tension along this diagonal, and it's really tough for white to maintain the dark square bishop. If you ever move the knight, we'll see a trade. And if you cut the board in half, black has this 4 versus 3 majority on the king side. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start pushing now or in the near future, Andrekin. And yeah, if he can start closing the center or even start blowing things open with a later timely f4, I will start to fancy black's chances. There we go, the f pawn, f for forward. And I'm slightly biased the other way this time, Robin. I think black's position is at least easier to play in a rapid time format.
It definitely is. Black is in control some of these pawn breaks, like pawn to f4. And speaking of f5, f4, I'm going to quickly just bring us over to the game between Fabiano Caruana and Alireza Firouzja, because this position will look a bit similar. We're mentioning F pawn pushes. Here we go, David. I mean, it's hard to know which game is which at this stage. There's a pawn on d5, just like in that MVL position. And here, the pawn has gone to f4 for black, but that opened up this new diagonal for Alireza's light square bishop.
Yeah, wow. It's like they have this hive mind, these top players. They all seem to be studying the same thing at the same time or looking at these same structures. Yeah, it's almost deja vu. It's almost mirror image. Yeah, the added ingredients here, though, I agree. I slightly prefer white's chances, potentially, just because the bishop will post up on a nice square. Oh, wow, he even grabs a pawn, Robert, but this is committal. Suddenly, he parts with his beautiful light square bishop. Yes, he's grabbed a pawn on the queen side, but he's asking for the black queen to come in. I'm not sure which square, f5, g4. If a black pawn ever lands on f3, there's going to be all sorts of mating constructions, all sorts of mating patterns around the white king. This looks so risky.
And look at Fabiano. He plays queen to e8, and that move, given a question mark, I think that's strong. Like I would not give that move that question mark, but perhaps the reason why is it does give that white queen access all the way along the third rank to the h3 square, where it can go into the e6 square with check. Knight d7 ideas will be floating around. So perhaps this is the reason that queen e8 was suboptimal. And actually, I thought it was harsh, but now that I'm looking at it, queen h3 does look very strong. A nice defensive move that could turn into quick offense.
Quickly found. That's his trademark, right, Robert? Firouzja, these days, we know him as an attacking player, dynamic, but he's becoming more versatile in terms of his defending. He always wants to defend kind of energetically, and it's always a bit of a bonus when you can play a move like this one, create some threats, create some headaches potentially. But also the queen got off this b file. That was just of paramount importance. And bishop d8. Ooh, knight d7 looks like a nasty fork, but black's intention is to drop back with his bishop and pin. And yeah, this one is so complicated right now. I mean, that's still possible for white. You could also just defend your knight with a pawn potentially, or drop the knight back. But maybe the most fiery encounter so far at this early stage of the 4 Division 1 battles so far.
Yeah, I would be a bit worried if I were Alireza, and he's not. He is not afraid at all. He goes knight d7. Bishop c8, which apparently that's not your error. I know how this works. That's the only move that keeps black in the game. But white will follow with queen to e6 check, forcing the queens off, getting out of a pin. But now with all this liquidation, it seems that once Fabiano defends the pawn on d6 with a bishop, I don't know, c or e7, bishop e7 feels very natural, rook to d8, you scoop up the d7 pawn, we will likely have equal material, but that does not mean that it's just a drawn game. We have actually players with passed pawns in different parts of the board. White has outside passed pawn potential. Black has these extra pawns in the center.
Yeah, I've been taught to believe in the power of the central pawns, at least while there are this many pieces still on the board. But for now, white is a pawn up. He will have 2 or 3 moves while black, as you say, goes and collects this pesky intruder on the 7th rank. And if white can make full use of those 3 tempi, then maybe he'll have some chances later on. But if black gets the king in, if black picks up this pawn, then I really fancy Fabiano's chances. So yeah, the evaluation bar right now, really deceptive. This could definitely go either way. The question mark, again, I'm inclined to believe it's a bit harsh here. I think a natural move from Fabiano, maybe the other way was slightly more accurate, keeping the c-file open, but ultimately could go either way. And it's Firouzja with a bit more time on the clock. That could be a factor a bit later on.
And look at that BA-H2 diagonal. I don't think it's very common that it's almost completely full. So G2 to G3, just for the memes, that seems like a fun move for white. But in all seriousness, this actually is anybody's contest. Let's go away from this game just for the moment. We will come back to see how this game continues. But I think the MVL versus Andraken game, that one is really heating up all of a sudden, where Andraken, he may be like the least known player in this field, but David, you and I know Dimitri for so many years. This is what he's capable of. Don't poke the bear, because now his pieces are just swarming in. Knight D3 comes to mind. At some point the D5 pawn might drop, and I think MVL is much worse here.
Yeah, it's black's move, so he can actually just jump in immediately and win the exchange. It took me a moment. I was like, wait, how does white stop this threat? But no, it's actually black's move. Can he jump in? Will he jump in? White will be forced to actually take that knight, most likely. And then white's knight would have been leaping in to its own outpost, the equivalent outpost on e6. So, wow, hesitation there. Is that a bit too tentative though, Robert? Queen d7. He wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants to play rook c5, keep this up his sleeve for later.
I kind of love it, just because I do appreciate when these top players, instead of taking the immediate material, they say, you know what, knight d4 to e6 was why I didn't go for it. You fork me on d3, I'll try to return the favor on e6. Now knight d4 is met with knight takes d5, and white's position falls apart. So what he is saying, Dimitri Andraken, this is a lesson for everybody who's watching, is that the immediate material, not quite worth it. Let's continue making sure my opponent's pieces don't come to life, don't infiltrate my position, and that's why he simply slid his queen over d7, also avoiding future forks.
Yeah, he's well known as a classy positional player, Andraken. He tries to avoid the chaos if he can. A trip down memory lane, Robert. World Under 10 Championship. Dimitri Andraken won the gold medal ahead of Magnus Carlsen, Jan Vachier-Lagrave, myself, and others. So he's super, super talented. He's always had that natural kind of instinct for where the pieces go. And it looks like he's just played fantastically so far. The one thing that does concern me is the clock. MVL slightly ahead there. And if things do suddenly spiral out of control, then Andraken might struggle a bit more than Vachier-Lagrave. But for now, it's under control. Rook c5, I would love next. Knight d3, everything for black. Big, big weakness on d5. He's the favorite in this one for now.
We're appreciating his connect 4, h7, e4, restricting the enemy light square bishop. So Andraken, he was a star as a youngster. I mean, he beat me in the world under 12, I want to say. And he was Team Scandi before John Bartholomew even knew how to play chess. That's what I feel like. Even if JB is older than Andraken, Andraken was playing the Scandinavian as a youngster, just crushing everybody with it. So let's go to our bird's eye view. We'll leave MVL to it. He now has actually less time than Andraken does. But as we look at our four-board view here, I mean, things have changed across the board. In the top left, Alireza and Fabiano, that remains a tense endgame battle with 2 rooks per side. In the top right, we actually haven't tuned into that, but Wesley So and Jan Krzysztof Duda, that looks like a tactical affair where one side, black, has the bishop pair, white has the 2 knights. In the bottom left, David, we have a positional grind where it's a knight for Jan Nepomsky against Magnus's bishop on d5. And then in the bottom right, we have the most chaotic position of all. So you take it away. You tell us where to go and what's happening. Are the bishops forked here?
Yeah, I'm taking us here for now, partly because we haven't been here so far, but partly because it is the most kind of far developed game and there's craziness. White has just sacrificed a piece, kind of. If you take this knight, it looks like white is suffering from some back rank problems. But maybe cold-bloodedly, Duda, after a capture on f3, is going to simply trade rooks and just take this bishop because the white knight will jump back. I don't know. Do we jump in, Robert? What do we do here? So many tactics.
Yeah, dive in, David. Take it away because, as you're pointing out, it looks like a back rank checkmate, but looks can be deceiving.
They can, and here White has to trade a set of rooks. If you now take this pawn to cover your back rank to stop checks, then Black can actually save both bishops by simply dropping back, and neither can now be captured. But White instead would have to, I believe, take on b7, and this looks terrifying. You allow a check. I mean, this is the most typical checkmate in all of chess, the first one we all learn, but White can block. And because it's only a dark square bishop, no way to add further pressure to the White knight. This would likely fizzle out towards a draw. So it looks like he's got it covered, Duda, if we go back to the game position. Although, yeah, I say that kind of half-heartedly because there could still be tricks and twists ahead. Do you see anything else for Black, though?
The last couple moves here where there's a pawn e4 attacking a knight that White couldn't really take because there was a rook on a5 and a rook on e1. You see those two rooks, same diagonal, bishop b4 would hit them both at the same time. So both players are coming up with some amazing tactical resources. And here I would say that Wesley, he has a little bit more to prove because a quick material count shows us that White is a pawn ahead. And even moves like bishop to b6, you need to be careful because at the right moment, and I'm not sure when that is, d5 to d6 could be a move that just causes absolute pandemonium. It says you're not going to keep stable in this position. So both sides will have many tactics to work through in the near future.
There's so many tactics. Robert, I mean, I would take that knight and try and bail out with a draw, but bishop b6, now you mention it, there are actually traps there ahead for White. If knight takes pawn, for example, this White rook is almost trapped. Bishop to a6. If it kicked back, the dark square bishop continues chasing. I mean, this one is one for everyone to analyze at home. I mean, both players only have 1 minute here, but this is super complicated for an endgame.
And we could see an exchange sacrifice because that white rook on b5 is stranded. It might have to give itself up for one of those black bishops. And if the e4 pawn drops, White will have a knight and 2 pawns for a rook, and those pawns could be very dangerous. So seriously, both sides now have to be very careful. And they're also approaching that 1 minute, 30-second mark. They get the 2 second added time per move. That's not as much as it may appear, especially in this kind of complicated position.
Yeah, kudos to Wesley So, though. He, by playing bishop b6, is the one to choose to play on, not to try and bail out for a draw. And he's the one trying to make things happen with his bishops. He will be down a pawn next move once he recaptures d5, but the bishops are super strong. And that white rook on b5, we talked about it, and its lack of squares. A bit of an issue potentially for Duda right now as the players tick down to the 1 minute mark. Okay, what do you think? Do we stay here to wait for its conclusion? Other games still in the balance most places, other than Dmitry Andreikin, who is still in charge against MVL.
Andreikin in charge, and in fact, MVL just made a big mistake as soon as we start talking about the game. So let's quickly just glance at that game, because I actually want to bring our attention after this one to the Fabiano game, because I see that Alireza's king has gone on a walk on the wild side. Lou Reed is rolling his eyes somewhere, being like, hey, that was just some song lyrics. Let's keep it easy. Here Andreikin, I mean, he's up in exchange. He's the one in charge. This still has some life to it, but can we please go to Alireza Firouzja against Fabiano Caruana? Because, David, a king on h5 in this position, what is happening?
Yeah, I said don't try it at home about some small positional details earlier. This is a big tactical detail. You have a checkmated king if Black can check it, but it's hiding on a light square. Black only has a dark square bishop. The white bishop doing an admirable job of acting as a bodyguard here, Robert. I mean, I hate it in one way because I would never play this, but I also love it, just showing how daring Firouzja is right now.
And I didn't even count the material. It's Alireza who's up a pawn. So if Fabiano's attack, if it doesn't work out for him, he could be facing a problem in the endgame. So d4, protecting his pawn, that looks good. But at some moment, pawn b4, pawn b5, that passed pawn gets going quite quickly. And where is Black's checkmate attack supposed to come from?
Ooh, the bar slides down. White, ooh, double question mark as well. I think here he's going for the checkmating attack this time, Firouzja. But the black king might take a walk of its own into the center where it'll be far more flexible than its counterpart. Maybe this was the downside. You've given the pawn back. That was part of the allure of White's position, having that extra pawn. And if it's level material, White's king sidelined, it might be the black e-pawn that causes the real damage.
Okay, so just steal that pawn and say, we have even material, but this is not a level endgame. I always say, don't just count the material. Look where those pawns are at. It's even material. White's up a pawn over there on the queen side. Black's up a pawn in the center. Black's pawns seem easier to push, and the white king still offside in some danger. What? There's got to be a checkmate coming.
It's so close. If this rook were just back on g8, this would be a lawnmower checkmate. The black rook would come across and trap the white king. But for now, the white king is keeping the rooks tied down to each other. The black king's coming, though. And, okay, the connection on the g-file was severed there by the white bishop. And the bar drops, but yeah, the white king's still living a charmed life. And the blue arrow appears, Robert. Rook back to f2. That was so difficult to find. So unnatural to retreat willingly there. And is it time for the black pawns to start rolling? Fabiano says yes, but apparently not. What's happened here?
Oh, there was
my
rook takes
God.
c7 check. Oh.
We have to show that quickly. I know the players are down to the last few seconds. Or do we show it later, Robert? What do you think? There was a winning tactic missed by Firouzja out of the blue almost.
You can just imagine already, if that rook takes the bishop, which is about to happen, by the way, we didn't have to show it. Alireza Firouzja found it the second time, and rook takes c7 with bishop f4 at the end.
He's found it. We didn't need to show it. The exact same tactic blundered twice in a row by Caruana. Yes, he's got the pawns, but the white bishop is a blockader. Game over.
Yeah, you could see Fabiano, he threw his hand in the air like, I cannot believe that I just let this one slip. And Alireza Firouzja, he is going to take game one after this king went all the way out to h5, but he continued to look for tactics for a way out, and now it's an easy win. This is game over.
Fortune did favor the brave there. Jan Nepomniachtchi still in play there. It looks like a balanced endgame, I was going to say.
Oh, you said it, and then Magnus suddenly is winning because he found an intermezzo.
Yeah, let's jump there. This one is winning for Andreikin, still a rook for bishop up. But wow, Magnus now with his pawns rolling. 2 rooks and 2 very strong pass pawns here, Robert, pretty much.
Yeah, you see Magnus was just able to crash through a big mistake from Jan Nepomniachtchi. There was tension. There was a black pawn on d6 that took a pawn on c5, but it allowed white to push the d pawn, then recapture the c pawn. And now we look. There's a healthy, protected pass pawn on d6. And David, the worst part for black, there's no b7 to b6 to undermine it. White's pawns have a true clamp on the queen side.
Yeah, black's rooks are paralyzed. Look at this black rook, cannot move. The other black rook stuck just in case the white pawn ever advances, and Magnus is getting ready to free up his own rooks. Maybe he'll slide across now. There we go. He's threatening to push. He might even come in later on with his rook to d5. Black is just stuck here. Shake of the head from Jan Nepomniachtchi. Robert, the endgame maestro, Magnus Carlsen again.
And Jan was outplaying Magnus. I sort of peripherally caught a glimpse at this game, and Jan brought his king to the center, was doing everything correct. But then you look at the clock, both players reaching below 15, 10 seconds, and that's where things started to unravel for Jan. Rook e7 check. There's almost a checkmating net coming. So the black king, it's ensnared right now.
Yeah, this king has nowhere to go. It will get trapped in the next couple of moves. Rook b2 now looks like a killer threat. One last trap here, en passant. And okay, Magnus takes the win. Jan resigns. Robert, a turnaround so quickly there.
And that's what happens in chess. You make one mistake and your position can collapse, and it did for Jan Nepomniachtchi. But this is what we said before the match began, David, that Jan Nepomniachtchi, when he's in his best shape, he can not just test Magnus, he can take him down, but Magnus outlasted him. You can see Magnus, he's looking over the game, probably trying to look at some mistakes, maybe catching up with text messages as well. But we have 3 winners in this opening round. We just watched Magnus Carlsen get it done. No surprise from Dmitry Andreikin. He outplayed Maxime Vachier-Lagrave in their matchup. And Alireza Firouzja, he survived a true scare against Fabiano Caruana, unleashing that tactic on the bishop on c7.
Yeah, very different types of games there. Andreikin winning, rightfully so, just in control the whole way from the start. But both Magnus Carlsen and Firouzja relied upon their speed skills, that quickness of thought, that quickness of mouse, and they bamboozled their opponents with just a few seconds left on the clock with huge turnarounds, Robert. A good start to the day for some, but others now needing to bounce back already.
For Fabiano Caruana, he did throw his hand in his air, but he did care. He was upset. He couldn't believe that he overlooked this tactic where a rook sacrificed for a bishop with check just to win the other rook. So Fabiano, he was in the driver's seat, didn't get it done. Jan Nepomniachtchi also was doing very well. he made a very critical error with an active king, and then the passed pawns went going. So, David, maybe we have a bit of time to just perhaps show a position or two that we didn't get to see, because I think the fans would enjoy seeing how the players were able to achieve their decisive victories.
Yeah, let's do just that, Robert. And let's start with Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi, where you mentioned actually it was Black doing the heavy lifting. Black, Jan Nepomniachtchi outplaying his esteemed opponent in the endgame. And we'll jump in here just moments before we joined that battle that had pretty much become a bullet match. Both players under the 1 minute mark. And it was here that Jan Nepomniachtchi started to let it slip. The white pawns look dangerous, but it's all about the black king. The black king is the best piece on the board. And if Jan had now gone active, played a move such as rook to g3, he would have been in control. White's big weakness on e3 is a target here. Maybe f4 later would create a passed pawn, and white struggles to make progress. White is a bit tied up. Rook's defending, and not much to be done. But instead, rook going to c8. And after rook c4, Jan made a huge error here. He should still wait. He can yo-yo back and forth with his rook, maintain the status quo, but d takes c5, a game-changing blunder, allowing that intermezzo you mentioned. Simply pushing past pawns, that's what they're there for. 2 steps away now, the black rook, if it steps across, loses control over the c5 square, missed maybe by Jan Nepomniachtchi, but after rook to c6, he could still take Magnus Carlsen now, and if he had tried to take a pawn, then the d pawn would have run through. So game-changing mistake there, going passive rather than active, and Magnus taking the win.
It was nice conversion in the end to see that you could throw in this d-pawn push. But David, Jan Nepomniachtchi, he must be kicking himself, because with the black pieces in the first game, to have that kind of position where he knew that he was outplaying Magnus, just to overlook this little push that did the heavy lifting, that's one of those moves you can't take back. But boy, does Jan Nepomniachtchi wish he could.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem in these, especially at this time control, Robert. You can play so well for 40 moves, 50 moves, one slip, just as it was for Fabiano Caruana as well, blundering a piece in one move. One slip changes everything, changes the dynamic of the match, changes your feeling, your confidence, your flow. And game one, but already so much drama.
In all the matches, Jančislav Duda against Wesley So, that was the one draw we had, and we did catch up with that end game. It seemed a little bit unclear with the bishops versus the knights. That felt like a fair result, David. So I think that in that clash between Duda and So, I would say they don't have the same style of chess, but very little separates them.
That's right. I would say polar opposites almost, at least in terms of their instincts, in terms of their natural selves. Both just fantastic players, but Duda definitely thrives in imbalanced positions. Wesley likes calmer positions that he can control the pace of. So yeah, it's going to be interesting who can assert their style, assert their authority on the opponent in the next battle.
Well, I'm just looking again at those, I don't even know what to call it, weapons on the wall behind Jan Nepomniachtchi. He is trailing Magnus Carlsen, but we know what he's capable of. And how do you come back if you're Jan Nepomniachtchi? Do you just say, I lost with the black pieces, that happens, I get 2 whites in my remaining 3 games? Or what do you think is going through Jan Nepomniachtchi's head?
Yeah, I think he's formulating a game plan. Does he stick to his kind of world championship repertoire, which kind of worked to some extent against Magnus, especially with the white pieces? Jan always, with white, seems to get a niggling edge. Kind of, he seems to be able to assert his kind of pressure on any opponent. But then again, do you try something else? Do you try something, a total surprise, throw Magnus off early, but at the same time, potentially risk playing unsound chess? So it's difficult. I wish I knew how to combat Magnus Carlsen. I wish anyone knew, but it's difficult for Jan Nepomniachtchi right now. I would advise just playing his usual stuff. It's still a long match. Still has plenty of time to strike back later.
Well, if anyone knows how to prepare against Magnus Carlsen, I think Fabiano Caruana from the 2018 World Championship match, 6-6 in regulation before rapid tiebreaks, and Alireza Firouzja, who now has the black pieces in this game, but he took down Magnus twice in the Chess.com Classic. So here we go. We're out of the gates. David, Fabiano, he plays a bit of everything. I actually think that he has completely overhauled his repertoire in recent months, especially, but I don't think I've ever seen him play this from the white side before.
No, I haven't either, Robert. He tends to be more classical, especially with white. With black, he's been freestyling a bit more, taking risks, trying to provoke the opponent. But with white, it was very much all about main lines until the last couple of years for Fabiano. E4, D4, very direct, very principled, and he knew his stuff inside out till move 30 and beyond. Here, it's, it's the type of chess that I play. You start freestyling on move 2 or 3. You just hope that you freestyle better than your opponent. But, okay, early offer of a queen trade. I've got to say, this idea of provoking the white knight forward, black has lost a tempo in the process with his bishop, but the idea makes a lot of sense while you have the option of playing moves like f6 and e5. You do gain a bit of time in the process. We'll see the queens leave the board now, most likely. But yeah, whose position do you prefer? Or at least, who do you think is the happier of the two at this early stage?
David, bring up the analysis board for a second, because I was just wondering what happens if queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, and bishop e4, just a way to hit the rook on h1 and the pawn d5. But check this out. Pawn takes c6, bishop takes h1, and I think there's rook takes a7. I hope that works, but that's what I think white relies on, distracting the black rook, sacrificing both rooks in consecutive moves, and then once the rook is captured, pawn to c7, and you can't stop promotion. And David, this really was a process of elimination for me, because I didn't quite understand what white was going for and why the evaluation bar would say white would ever be better after bishop e4. But now I get it.
Robert, you're a GM for a reason. That is incredible. This tactic actually does pop up in a few different variations. I think in one line of the London system as well, where you can get away with this tactic, but it's so rare. Just quick action replay for everyone at home. You've just sacrificed a rook, and like you say, Robert, you give the other rook away for free. The reason being that you can't push now. The black knight will simply move, and the black rook covers. So yeah, deflection, distraction, and you win the game. Rook takes a7. If we see that, which I believe it's still possible, then we'll be showering the board with gold coins, that's for sure. That would be a real turn up for the books. But, okay. Oh my god, he's played it! Bishop e4.
Well, David, I mean, at first glance, if you have to play f3 or something, bishop takes d5, that looks good for black. I mean, it doesn't look bad, I should say, for black, because the b3 pawn is a target. But d takes c6, that is possible here, and it's because of this rook takes a7 idea.
Yeah, and he's paused. Fabiano, he can go up a pawn simply after taking on c6. I guess black will have to take with the knight, just damage limitation, but he's done it. Oh, Firouzja, double exclamation point. He's giving up a rook. Firouzja needs to smell a rat and take this pawn back, but after f3 will be left a pawn down for nothing. Fabi.
And sorry, go ahead, David. I can't get over what just happened. And for Firouzja, as you said, I think he knows now that Fabiano isn't just blundering a rook in the corner. There's no more bluffs.
No more bluffs. And credit to his poker face, Robert. Just looking in the camera, Firouzja hasn't reacted. If I had just fallen victim to this trick, this devilish trap, then I would be sitting there, head in hands, just hating myself, hating life, just telling myself I need to study openings. He's lost a pawn for free after 7 moves. And he's walked into a potential brilliancy, but he needs to recompose himself. Just take this pawn back. Oh, I kind of want to see bishop takes h1, though. Just that would go down in all the chess books forever for history.
Oh my god! What?
He didn't see it. Oh my god, it's on the board.
There's
Firouzja.
no way.
Wow. This is once in a lifetime stuff. Fabiano on the camera, Robert, smiling. He knows he's... Wow. This is immortality stuff.
Yeah, this is going down in the best games book, beating Alireza Firouzja in essentially 9 moves of chess, 2 brilliancies in a row. And David, I was actually going to ask you, when Fabiano paused on move 6 to take that pawn on d5, he spent about 30 seconds. I was wondering if he was just leading Alireza to believe that he didn't know the opening, because clearly Fabiano knows what's up. That he took on d5, he took on c6, and sacked the rook, the second rook, on a7. So this is just mesmerizing stuff.
Yeah, the top chess players in the world, they are a bit sneaky. They do these things. I've done that plenty of times, Robert. Spent 5-10 minutes pretending to think and just to lure my opponent forward along a variation to lull them into that false sense of security. And Firouzja, I'm just amazed he took on h1. Surely after white gives you a rook for free, you pause, you think, you kind of mistrust your opponent. But yeah, this happens. And 9 moves he can resign. I mean, the problem for black is it's just checkmate. The black king is actually trapped on the back rank, whether you allow your rook on a8 to fall or whether you allow the pawn to push forward. And Firouzja's going to resign after 9 moves. There we go.
Game over.
It's over.
He resigned. Look at Fabiano. He is cracking up over there because this never happens at the highest level. He's not laughing at his opponent. It's just that you work on these opening tricks and traps, hoping that one day maybe, someone in Title Tuesday will fall for it. But you don't expect it to happen on this stage, David, against this opponent.
Yeah, you can never expect that. This is the type of thing when you're preparing openings, you flick through with the computer, you're like, okay, this is one thing to avoid. That will never happen, though. And you kind of move on. And Firouzja, I mean, I think he's going to be great for what happened now rather than a critical game a bit later on. But huge lesson to be learned there. Huge homework to be done as well. And wow, what a turn up for the books. Just incredible, Robert. Just incredible. And the other games have barely started in the meantime.
Well, you say that, but then I look in the bottom right. I don't know what's going on with Dimitri Andreikin today because we typically think of him as this solid London player. But I'm looking at that game against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Maxime brings out the fighter in Dimitri. Like, look at their position. Black is missing an F-pawn. White hasn't connected the rooks yet. This looks like a scrappy type of position. And I have to say, White's pawn structure is much healthier, but Black is going straight for the White king.
Yeah, Black has to. Like you say, long-term, White is doing extremely well, positionally, strategically, and often as the side who's suffering with a worse pawn structure, you have to compensate for, the deficiency of the weakness of these pawns by being energetic, by going for the attack, going for the kill before your opponent gets organized. So now Black has the bishop pair. At least the attack has been slowed down. But I could definitely imagine a black bishop landing on this diagonal later on and going for the g2 pawn in combination with the black queen. I still like White's position. I'm a big sucker for nice pawns, nice pretty pawns, Robert. But Maxime fighting. This is his chess as well, fighting with dynamism.
If we were commentating with Danya, he might take the black side. But you and I, we're kind of similar in this regard. We much prefer the healthier pawn structure. You see White has 2 pawn islands. Black has 3 isolated pawns, a7, c6, and e7, which means you're going to have to use your more valuable pieces just to defend the little ones. So bishop e3, connecting the rooks, finishing development, and a word of advice for everybody who's scared of the bishop pair. If these dark squared bishops come off, White is just cruising. So if somehow I can go rook d1, bishop d4, and trade off the dark square bishops, Dimitri Andreikin would do that in a heartbeat and be very happy. And that is what Maxime is going to avoid. He's using his activity as a way to shield his weak pawns.
Yeah, you got to be really, really active here. I'm not sure how to start, whether you just try to kind of plant your bishop on d5 as soon as possible. I would love to gain a tempo against this white queen, just landing the bishop on this diagonal. I'm slightly tempted to try and throw away pawns already just to clear diagonals, but I don't think it's working quite yet. Ultimately, you want to bring your rook over. You want to start attacking, but it's very slow, very time consuming. So for now, despite the fact he's a couple of minutes down, Dimitri Andreikin, I think he's going to be very optimistic about increasing his lead in this first match, this winners quarterfinal.
This is a kind of Maxime position. This is the most Andreikin of Andreikin positions. So yeah, yes. I have to think the opening battle has gone Dimitri's way. For those of you who are not familiar with Dimitri Andreikin, go look up his chess games. Look how he made it to the finals of the World Cup, how he played in the candidates, and I believe he finished with a 7 out of 14 score, right in the middle of the pack. I mean, this player has been at the highest level of chess for a long time, a bit inactive over the board, but truly a star of the game. How many Title Tuesdays has the guy won? Like 15 or something. And he's really, really strong, and he could win this whole event.
Yeah, just fantastic player. If you at home feel that you're a positional player as well and you like your harmony, like your good pawn structures, like your kind of risk-free chess, then he's a great role model to follow. A5 from Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. I guess he's trying to push the pawn even further, and by using it as a battering ram on the queen side, he's going to try and open up his bishop, but feels like he's playing on the wrong side of the board. Normally, you don't want to touch the side where you're weaker. A bit slow there. So we'll wait and see whether we're proven right about White's nice pawn structure here and whether it grants a long-term advantage. I'll look at that offer of a queen trade. Very, very solid stuff from Dimitri Andreikin. Maybe not the most kind of accurate there, but he's trying to just suck all of the risk out of the position here for White.
Yeah, and when you're up a point in a match, your opponent feels some pressure to even it up. These kind of decisions can pay off. So we'll see how this one continues. Both players, they're going to try to either squeak out that advantage, or for Maxime try to use his activity as a way to parry off some of the pressure. But let's go back to our view of the other games, because one game is finished before even 10 moves were played. That's in the top left. Fabiano Caruana, he's not in his chair. He deserves a rest. He won in 9 moves of chess. Unbelievable stuff. But David, as we look at the top right and the bottom left, both of those games, they look quite interesting to my eyes. Which direction would you rather go?
Robert, I'm going to start calling you the prophet this time. You predicted that whole variation, the 9-move win. This time, I'm going to predict that Jan Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen is going to heat up in the near future. We'll go to the Caro-Kann between Wesley So and Jan Krzysztof Duda. But first, Magnus has to fight back against a bit of pressure, I would say. The bishop pair crops up yet again. And it's Jan Nepomniachtchi. We talked about his strategy for trying to strike back. Yeah, it looks like he's done some very promising stuff, I would say. Got the bishop pair, got the extra pawn in the center, and now trying to blow open this diagonal. But bishop e2 from Magnus hit on a rook. What do you make of this middle game?
I know what would happen if this were a bullet game. Pawn takes e5 in a heartbeat, right? Just give up the rook on f1. All right, it's already happened. Jan Nepomniachtchi plays rapid like it's bullet sometimes. And if we're being honest, David, that might be his biggest asset in this position. Look at the clock. He's up 2 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I firmly believe this is easier for White to play because you're about to go on the attack.
Yeah, just like you, I had to pause after I saw bishop e2. I was like, wait, why can't White just start grabbing? And I mean, you're going to get a dream of a pawn center, let alone other compensation. The White queen's going to land on f5. Big weaknesses. Magnus, I do feel he's living on the edge. The eval bar says level, but yeah, this is far from a dull position, far from a balanced one. This is pretty much all the imbalances you can get.
Looks Magnus very nice.
Sorry, is Magnus playing on a phone? A tablet?
Yeah, it kind of looks like it from this angle. And even knight g4, by the way. I was thinking you have to go the d file to keep that knight protected, because queen f5 here looks like it hits your knight and maybe forces it back to h6, but that's not where your knight really wants to be. But perhaps Magnus has worked this all out, because this is bishop e4 is the only move. And if that's the blue arrow telling us that's the only move that keeps the balance here, that means that queen f5 is probably met by queen takes d2, not even protecting the knight, just attacking the dark square bishop.
Yeah, just chaos would ensue after queen f5, queen takes d2, and it does look like that chaos favors black. If black can simplify the equation, just get rid of pieces, even at the cost of giving up back some of the material, giving up maybe a couple of pawns, I think that would favor Magnus right now. So bishop e4, I agree with you, it's not easy. The whole idea is to kind of provoke a weakness, and the bishops on these two diagonals will likely give you a big attack, but far from obvious when you have so many other tempting options. So big moment right now. Rook f5 also comes to my mind. I'm not sure why I'm attracted to that one. I guess you can't defend that pawn with your queen, so yeah, bishop e4, we'll wait and see. But yeah, it looks like Magnus is working on that tablet. It looks like he's calculating right now, and yeah, very double-edged play.
I do like your suggestion, though. Rook f5 looks far more normal to me in a way than bishop e4, because giving up your central pawn, I know h7 is loose, you're going to hit the king, you get a check over there, but it does feel like you're losing a pretty important central pawn. So rook f5 makes perfect sense, because if we're being honest, black never wants to play the move g6. Like, in no universe does black want to push that pawn to kick the rook out of there, because you're opening up that long diagonal, and there's a bishop on b2, very happily waiting to see a queen land on c3 and go for this kind of battery checkmate. So bishop e4, I see the blue arrow. I don't find it that likely.
Yeah, I think if he gets there, it's maybe a process of elimination. Maybe there aren't other moves. Queen f5, though. It's that line you predicted, Robert, and huge mistake, huge blunder from Jan Nepomniachtchi. He must have underestimated or miscalculated this move, queen takes d2. Otherwise, white is doing great. It's a double hit. You hit the knight, you hit the pawn, but black can counterattack. You don't always have to go passive and just react. You can strike back now. And Magnus, he's going to play it, surely.
Yeah, the fact that he paused was a clear indicator that he was going to play this move. And queen takes d2, that was spotted from a distance. Jan overlooked it. But the point is that queen takes f7 check does not lead to mate. The black king just slides on over to the corner. E3 is dropping. The white king is actually in some danger. And if trades happen, that favors the side with more material. And in this case, that's Magnus Carlsen. So I think you're just dropping pretty much everything at this stage here. David, do you even see a move that allows white to keep this a game?
No, not really. Even queen takes g2 is a threat here, just to simplify, and knight takes e3. But I don't know, bishop d4 maybe. But I don't really see why black has to stress too much about the f7 pawn. Like you said, it's not checkmate, and if you're not getting mated, you have extra material. It's a simple maths equation here. Exchange up, and white, just total collapse. I've got to say, some weird stuff is in the air in the CrunchLabs Masters, Robert. That 9-move loss by Firouzja, and now Nepomniachtchi self-destructing in one move. What's happening?
I think for Jan, it's just the pressure of playing Magnus, although I will give credit because bishop c1, that looked like the way to keep the game going at least. But for Jan Nepomniachtchi, I think it's just that frustration. When you lose that first game where he was better in the end game, it seemed like you shouldn't really have any losing chances whatsoever. You just start like throwing your hands in the air and being like, how do I ever beat Magnus Carlsen? And for most players, the answer is you never do. Jan Nepomniachtchi has been able to do that before, but over a 4-game match, good luck to you.
Yeah. And if he goes 2-0 down right now, then huge uphill struggle. I don't think he's going to make it. Credit to bishop c1, though. Credit to Jan Nepomniachtchi. That was not on my radar. But the black queen had to defend the knight now. So Magnus calculating extremely well. And the white bishop cannot fork the two pieces because there's a checkmate on the h2 square. Yes, it's just a pawn. On f7, you can take it, but black will gobble up on e3 and or e5 in the near future. And this one should be game over. Magnus cruising.
And as you point out, bishop f3, queen h2 mate, that's the essential point here, because otherwise this line would have failed for black. So Magnus calculated it all in advance. It worked to perfection. He's going to secure his second victory, it would appear, unless something goes wrong. But why don't we branch out? We've been in this game for a bit. Magnus well in control as Jan Nepomniachtchi is thinking. I see that Wesley and Duda, they're in a bit of time trouble. That game not the most electrifying, but this feels like a position where if I would have thought anyone was playing the black side, I would have thought it was Wesley with such a healthy pawn structure.
Yeah, black has full control here. It's almost what we call a Carlsbad structure. It used to be a Carlsbad structure with black's pawns facing this way, white's pawns facing this way. But white has committed a huge decision there earlier with pawn to b4. And yes, it has erected this huge knight on c5. But at some point, that knight will get kicked back. And the backwards c-pawn will likely be a huge burden for white's position later on. Duda, we were talking about how his instincts are aggressive. Wesley's a positional. Is very much the other way around in this game so far. And I do love black's position. Very biased Caro-Kann player, but looks great if he can time b6 correctly.
B6 should be on your radar every single move, but that's the type of move that players often play a little bit too quickly. I would actually say Wesley with the black pieces, I would just trust him completely, say, yeah, he's got this one. But the problem is that you're always tempted to make this pawn push, and Duda says, hey, don't just speak as if this is one-way traffic. Knight d7, we may see in some positions knight f8 to g6 because that pawn on g5 is such a good one. But for now, is it time, David? Please tell me. Is this the right moment? He did play b6, but is it going to work out?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I might have hesitated a bit longer. I guess he wanted to strike before white gets any counterplay going with h4, for example. But I still prefer black's position. I don't know whether it was the perfect moment. The one downside now is that you do liberate the white rook, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Black's knight will happily park itself on c4. I still think Duda's really in control here. Wesley's going to be hating every second of this. Just like Andreykin, we were talking about a lover of great pawn structures, and Wesley is one of those. Oh, the black king might even come, Robert, into the position in the near future. This still looks great for black, I've got to say.
Just a weak point in the white position. C3 pawn, easy target. White's best move would be pawn b4 back to b2, because a pawn chain is only as strong as your base pawn. And here the c3 pawn, that's not looking very healthy. And I just want to mention, since you named Andreykin, his position against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, that looks quite level with two rooks opposite colored bishops, but there still is some life left there. But let's stick to this one, David, because I feel like Duda, he can increase the pressure with a rook swap and knight to b5. Do you see any alternatives besides trading rooks?
No, I would be reluctant here to keep the rooks on the board. For example, you could run away from the trade, but you only leave the opponent with a really active piece. So why not trade your opponent's most active piece? And like you say, go pawn hunting. The knight does hit the backward pawn on c3, and rook c1. That's the type of move you play through gritted teeth, Robert. Just full defensive, backs to the wall job here. It's just about whether black can increase the advantage and increase the pressure. There we go. The rook's coming in. A new avenue has opened.
I love moves like that because we keep talking about the c3 pawn, and that's where I was tunneled on. Why would I ever leave the c file? Well, my rook can actually go to a2 to kick that knight out of there. Sometimes it might sit on a3, and this black king, it belongs on c4. King c6, king, once the knight moves, king to b5. So you need to use the king as a weapon in the endgame. So that black knight will slide back to d6. The black king will venture forward. So that's, I think, the main plan.
Yeah, just looks so beautiful. And okay, the blue arrow appears. I don't think that's the only promising move, but it's probably the only one to immediately cash in and capitalize on white's last error. I think that's because the white knight will be forced away from the c-pawn, and you will be able to simply go and capture it in the near future. The white knight will be forced to a worse circuit. So g5, will he play it? Maybe he won't need to. That's the one thing. Like you said, knight d6 just looks like such a healthy long-term plan. You can win it the slow way. G5 is the faster way, but often being more direct does increase the margin for error. So we'll see. I think knight d6 is just as healthy, though.
Knight d6 looks like such a good move. Instead, he goes rook a3. Maybe he wants to repeat the position once. I'm looking at the clock, and Duda was well ahead. Now we've evened up. In fact, Jan Chistov is the one with less time. I'm starting to get worried about his winning chances because if he wants to win, he has to take some risk, as you said. And taking risk when you're down at 20 seconds, usually not a good idea.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's frozen, really slow. Duda's normally very instinctive in these positions. Okay, the position repeats itself, and now g5. So he finds the best plan, the best continuation, but it did cost him a bit of time, and it's going to be a bit random now in the scramble. I'm not sure what I would try here for white. Knight h3 gains a bit of time against this pawn, but oh, look at that. Full control, controlling his whole half of the board. f6 there. Rook a3 is not running away anytime soon. Okay, Robert, this one, surely he would win this with anything more than a minute on his clock, but 15 seconds, is that going to be a bit of a savior here for Wesley So?
And Duda keeps spending more time than I would have thought that he was going to. I mean, he went down to 5 seconds, gained 2 seconds bonus time, so he's at 7 now, but rook d2, he's just trying to freeze white's pieces. I think that Wesley has to bring his king back, king g2, king f1, but no, he brings his knight first. David, I don't see white having a plan for the rest of the game.
Yeah, white is pretty much in zugzwang. White is just yo-yoing back and forth. Knight d1, knight f2, knight d1, knight f2. And he's just asking Duda to come and break that fortress. Can Duda break through, though, with only a few seconds left? 5 seconds every turn. I don't know.
One second.
Wesley, he might save it. Okay,
he's making me nervous. Both these players are getting down to their final seconds. And David, do you think that... Oh, there it is. The c3 pawn's dropping. So I was about to ask if progress has been made, and the answer is an obvious yes.
Some counterplay, though. One pawn has dropped. I could definitely imagine white getting f4, g5 in the near future and pushing that pawn. But, okay. Oh, the rook almost trapped. The f3 pawn drops now. Duda in control. Looks like he's the faster. He's still in charge here.
King F7. Is the rook King F7, there's rook H6. I thought the rook was just trapped in the spot. But no, it survives 2 seconds. Duda takes his pawn on d4. So now, David, it's an extra pawn. But if that white knight can sacrifice itself for those 2 black pawns in the center, we could be talking about a position that Wesley has hopes of saving.
That's right. Still not over due to the lack of pawns here. Some counterplay with the g-pawn, but nice sidestep there, Duda. The black king will be the guardian of the white g-pawn. And 3 versus 1 now in terms of pawns. The B pawn is actually going to be the winner, the furthest away from the white knight. Should still be under control. I say should. Robert, we've seen strange things already. Knight e2, though, does remove most of the danger. And Duda leans back. He knows he's got this.
Oh, but that was a great move, rook f1, because king g4, pawn g6. The black king is cut off, just like it would be if black had no pawns on the board.
Ooh, is he going to break that rook f5? Oh, he's pushing his own pawn, but... How's he stopping the g-pawn now? There we go. Really clever. Yeah. Now the black king is going to...
timed.
The Black King will deal with this pawn. Like you say, perfect play. Oof. He ran it close though, Robert. It looks like he's going to get the win, but nearly let it slip.
Yeah, that rook f5 find by you and played at the right moment from Duda. That was exceptional endgame technique. And now the problem for Wesley is that he needs his king and rook to take that pawn on d3, well, yesterday. And now, unfortunately for him, it's going to be captured on the wrong square, and the Black King marches forward.
Yeah, and king and pawn endgame 101 after rook takes d2, which I think will be tried by Wesley in the near future. But the Black King will use the opposition. Here we go. We're going to get shown by Duda the winning motif. You kick back the white king, you force it to decide now, and then you go forward and you shepherd the black b pawn home. Game over. Almost. There might be a stalemate trick if you're careless. But here, Duda, surely.
Don't push. Do not push the pawn. No, he's got
stalemate.
This. Duda, he is such a well-trained player that he's not going to push the pawn until he's ready. And now is when he does so. That's game over.
Yeah, beautiful technique. He gets the win, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, and takes the lead in the winners' quarterfinals, Division 1.
Okay, so we have results in the books. Dmitry Andreikin, he drew his game against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and it looks like Magnus Carlsen still in charge in this one. And I want to give a quick shout out to a player that's very familiar to the Champions Chess Tour, somebody who's often been in the top division. It's Denis Lazovic, but here we're actually not shouting him out in the best moment because he did lose his game in the third division to Yuri Kuzubov, the strong Ukrainian grandmaster. So we see top talent even in the third division. Kuzubov knocks Lazovic down to the loser's bracket. But here, David, I think that's what Jan wants to avoid, is being kicked down there. Unfortunately, he's got no attack, and his king on h3 looks like it's the one that's going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, so near yet so far. There's no good check for white. The black king is on a vulnerable diagonal, but the checking squares against it are covered. Black covers this square, the black queen centralization. Magnus is the king of queen endgames, and he always gets his queen in the center, controls the whole board, and yeah, like you say, there's checkmating patterns galore. If the white bishop moves elsewhere, then queen to f5 might be a deadly check. This one looks over. He did it the hard way, Magnus Carlsen. He nearly let Jan back in, but looks like he's going to get the win eventually. Queen c2 now will pick up this pawn. There we go. And game over. Finally, the white king is caught in the corner.
Just Jan, he is threatening a checkmate. Unfortunately for him, Magnus Carlsen delivers the checkmate first. So that was a well-played game from Magnus. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he sacrificed in exchange a rook for a minor piece, but he just couldn't find a way through because Magnus Carlsen played far too accurately.
Yeah, Magnus in cruise control there, taking a huge advantage early on. A bit of a blunder there from Jan Nepomniachtchi in the early middle game, and a 2-0 lead, the world number one. Starting the CrunchLabs Masters on a high, as has Jan-Krzysztof Duda with that important win, while the 9 move. I mean, what do we call it? Miniature there, Robert? I think that's going to be the talking point of the day.
Well, when a top player wins and one loses that quickly, of course it's going to be the talking point. But I think we should talk about Jan-Krzysztof Duda's endgame technique. That was really masterful. He repeated the position a couple times. Just when it looked like he was in time trouble, might not find the W, he did just that. So Wesley he is down by a point. And of course, Dmitry Andreikin, he leads 1.5-0 over Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So, David, I don't even know what position to look at. I think I know what everyone wants to see. But in addition to that game, I mean, there's just so much excitement.
Yeah, we were excited beforehand, Robert, and it's really lived up to it so far today. So many decisive games, but it's not just the results, it's the style, the drama, the blunders, the brilliancies. And I think one game that contained all of that was that 9-move miniature, packed all into 9 moves. And it's not every day you see a top grandmaster sacrifice 2 rooks within 9 moves and the queens being off the board, but that's exactly what happened between Fabiano Caruana and Alireza Firouzja. And we'll show that in just a second, how Fabi wrapped that up, took the win. And Firouzja needs to recover just from the shock. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And here we go. We see a very standard-looking type of position, which arose from a hybrid between the English opening and the Reti. Queens coming off the board here. Black offering this trade of queens. Fabiano took on d5. If you take, white simply pockets a pawn. So the queen trade looked inevitable, and here, if black captures with d5, which would have been a lesser evil, white's knight would have come forward, hitting the d5 pawn and trying to enter the b5 square. Very nice attacking post. So Firouzja tried to recapture the pawn with his bishop instead, hitting the rook on h1, hitting the pawn. Looks like a double attack, but Fabi did not react to the hit on his rook. Simply capturing on c6, double exclamation point. He is sacrificing his rook in the corner. Firouzja now needed to just accept the fact that he was going to go down a pawn. Knight takes on c6, and after f3, black would have been a pawn down, but at least would have been fighting. Instead, bishop takes h1, and blink and you miss it. This game was over immediately after the brilliant rook takes a7. Deflection. The black rook in the corner is trapped. If it takes the white rook, then c7 would crown the victory for white, making a queen next move no matter what. And not just that, the black king also trapped, checkmated, and Firouzja, after 9 moves only, had to throw in the towel and resign.
An absolute shocker. Fabiano Caruana was laughing. He was thrilled. And I think everybody can learn from that experience. And Alireza Firouzja will have to learn fast, because there are 2 more games in their opening match. And then we might get Armageddon. But we do know it's summer. It's hot. The chess, it has been on fire here in the CrunchLabs Masters. And if your summer bucket list includes getting a sick tan and improving your chess, chess.com can help you with one of those things. Just one, though. Boost your game with 50% off premium membership, including a 7-day free trial that's unlimited game review, puzzles, lessons, and more, plus a breezy, ad-free experience for your beachside chess games. No code needed. Anyone with a basic membership can claim this offer. Use the command SUMMER or visit go.chess.com/summer_offer now. We'll be right back from the CrunchLabs Masters. This is the winners quarterfinals. We've seen Yana Pomshi struggle against Magnus Carlsen. We've seen other players show their best. Magnus, he may be rubbing his eyes, but he has been a treat to watch. So we'll be right back. This is the CrunchLabs Masters 2024. Do not go anywhere.
So generally, I'm a big fan of Eric Rosen in general. I recommend him heartily for his content, which is both really fun and really educational. I think he has a great presentation style, and he's actually opened my eyes to quite a few gambits and variations that I was not aware of. Treat every blunder as a gambit is, I think, good at building the kind of mentality that I would approve of. Because if, let's say your opponent hangs a piece, and already I'm saying hangs a piece, that's not the right way to put it. A piece leaves a piece hanging, and you're trying to figure out, is there some hidden nefarious design behind this move, or is it just a straight up blunder? It's very important not to go too extreme into either side. You should not just assume that it isn't a blunder because your opponent is rated X and you're rated Y. And I've kind of was impacted by this as a lower rated player. When I faced someone higher rated, I would just kind of assume that they saw everything, and that if they made a move I thought was a mistake or a blunder, that there was absolutely no way that I could be seeing more than them. And that went out the window with experience, because I realized everyone's human, everyone makes blunders. Even GMs leave pieces hanging. It's not common in longer form OTB chess, but in Blitz and Bullet, you'll see it happen all the time. And when I do it on stream, people are often so surprised, like, oh my God, he hung a rook. Oh no, my rook. But it's actually quite common. I mean, there's nothing about me or any other GM that inherently keeps us away from blundering pieces. So I really like this piece of advice. I think it tells you to treat your opponent's moves with respect. So don't just automatically laugh at your opponent and assume that a hanging piece can be captured. You should double check that there is no hidden intention behind it. At the same time, you shouldn't give your opponent too much respect. And if you don't see a reason that a piece should not be captured, you should always trust yourself. At the end of the day, if you trust yourself and your opponent ends up fighting you in the you-know-where, listen, then that was a great experience, a great learning experience. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what did I miss, right? What can I pay attention to next time next time the situation occurs, that'll make me a better chess player. That's the great thing about chess, is that no matter what happens, in the end, you do benefit. But this mentality of always double checking and not making automatic moves, even when you get really excited about a potential blunder, I'm all for that mentality, and big fan of Eric Rosen in general. So definitely a good piece of advice to put into your general toolbox.
We return to the CrunchLabs Masters, and that was a masterpiece that would make Mark Rober proud. Fabiano Caruana evens up his match against Alireza Firouzja. He wins a miniature in just 9 moves, 2 brilliancies in a row, 2 rook sacrifices in a row. And for Alireza Firouzja, he doesn't want to see Fabiano Caruana again, and yet they will have 2 more games in a row, David, because it's 1-1. It's best out of 4 game matches. And the other matches, well, they have a clear leader. This is the only one between Alireza and Fabiano that's evened up.
Yeah, just incredible. I mean, I'm still reeling from the shock, the surprise of that tactic, that 9-move win. I wonder how Firouzja's feeling. We're going to find out. Often players react in 2 ways from that type of devastating defeat. Either it inspires them, they refocus, they find a new energy, they go on and strike back, or they collapse. So Firouzja, he'll hope that he's over the emotion, that he's recomposed himself. And Robert, he's trying to do something very similar to the previous game, or at least game 1 of the day between these two when Firouzja took the win. The same branch, the bishop b5 check Sicilian with the bishop dropping back. But what do you think? Is Fabiano going to be able to kind of steady the ship with black and maybe capitalize on that last win?
Yeah, well, this type of opening is very solid from the white side. So I think for Alireza, it's good not to get yourself in this mentality where I have to get my revenge, because that often does happen, especially when we're talking about online matches where you feel like a little bit embarrassed. You feel like, something happened that you just immediately want to recover from. So for Alireza, I do think this is a good opening choice. Very solid. And for Fabiano, he just spent a while before playing G6. And look at this. We have like a Maroczy bind type of structure. White is clamping down the center, later pushing this pawn to d4 if allowed. So, David, I have to say, I like the opening from the white side.
Yeah, I've got to say I like it too, especially if he gets those 2 things that you mentioned, especially if he gets his pieces developed and the time to play d4. It might not be easy. Fabiano, with his last move, he's going to put a bishop on b7 and keep white tied down to this e4 pawn. But yeah, if he can somehow kind of suffocate black almost, just force black to sit within Fabi's first kind of couple of ranks there, then I really like white's chances later on. A bit more space, a bit of a bind, as we say, a bit of control. So very early days. But yeah, it's stylistically, I would say maybe Firouzja the happier of the 2 so far.
It's actually funny you say that, because I agree, but then I'm like, stylistically, it just doesn't really suit either player. I'm like, Fabiano's playing this cagey sort of offbeat opening from the black side, and Alireza's playing this positional squeeze from the white side. Usually it's Alireza who likes the dynamic play. So I do feel like almost color should be reversed in a way, and I don't know what that tells me at all.
Yeah, No, as I was saying it, you're right. As I was saying it, Firouzja, we rarely see him making these finesse type moves. I mean, bishop to b5, back to e2, back to f1, just to try and get this pawn structure that may or may not be favorable for white. It is a bit cagey. I'm really surprised that Fabian is thinking here. I don't see any reason not to just invite that pawn structure incoming. Black is really solid. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. I would have thought Fabi maybe would just rush the opening, just riding that high, riding the wave, keep kind of Firouzja just playing with emotion, just playing super speedy. But it looks like he's slowed down Fabi here and eventually does castle. All pieces still on the board.
I was wondering if he was thinking of playing e5 as black to just shut down the center completely. But of course, that comes with its own risk, because if you shut down the center, then players will play on the flanks, and the side that controls the pawn breaks is usually the happier of the two. And Fabi says, I don't mind a pawn trade. What happens when you lose or trade a pawn? An open file for your rook. And b3 here is something that needs calculation, because the knight on c3 loses defender. b5 would be the immediate response. I think Fabi would be very happy to see that type of position occur.
Yeah, and that idea is ruled out in a very committal fashion here, pretty much permanently with pawn to a4. You cover this b5 square so many times now that you never really have to worry about that break. But you've lost control over some dart squares, and look at this. It's full hedgehog style, really prickly here. Black's position controlling all of his kind of squares here, all of his territory, and hinting that he might lash out at some point. Don't get too close to this hedgehog. It might catch you unawares. So d5 in the air. I've got to say, Robert, just time-wise, in terms of tempo, White's lost so much time, just all of those maneuvers with his bishop, that it feels like this must be a good version of this pawn structure for Black.
I agree completely. I think Fabi should be happy with the outcome of the opening. Very solid. d5 is in the air. As you said, the hedgehog, very prickly, and if you can push those pawns forward, it's white overextended pawns sometimes that actually pay the price. So why don't we actually zoom out of this one, because there's a player who has to win. A draw sends them down to the loser's bracket. That's Jan Nepomniachtchi in the bottom left of our screen. And David, look at the position we have. It's some sharp Sicilian. Jan needs to win, but sometimes when you play must-win chess, you're somewhat playing to lose.
Yeah, look at that eval bar as well. Let's jump into that game. Magnus Carlsen, he's just looked fantastic today, you've got to say. Started strong and backing it up with really energetic play. He's really showing everyone the way forward as well. When a draw is good enough, don't play passive chess. That's the recipe for disaster, for momentum shift. Magnus, he's just going straight for the kill. A draw good enough, but Robert, he's caveman style. Attack, 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 F for forward. And we've seen so many Sicilians today, but this might be the most brutal of them all.
I think that Jan, he's in must-win territory, so he just played a known dubious move. I mean, there's no way around it. He played an opening where he's like, I can't allow my opponent to force a draw, because if Magnus does that, I lose the match. So he's played something that's just bad for Black. His knight's on h5. White could capture that, could have captured it, in fact, but says, let's leave it there, because, in fact, that knight is so bad that by leaving it there, I'm just pressing forward and you're essentially playing a piece down in some regard. So I think that Magnus is playing this very, very nicely. And if I'm Jan, maybe I have to do something on the C file, but I'm not sure what, because it feels like a pipe dream.
Yeah, just like you, I thought the only source of counterplay might be a move like knight to b4 to try and capture on c3, but ultimately it was just a one-trick kind of idea. And Magnus, at some point, before the knight runs away, probably will just capture it and go up a pawn with a positional advantage. Black's king stuck in no man's land, can never castle queenside anymore, will not want to castle into the firing line on the kingside either. And just grab that pawn, I would say, or at least take the knight and decide whether to take on h5 with your queen after. But this just looks so one-sided. You see on the camera, Jan does not look optimistic at all about his chances. It's just a gamble that's backfired.
Yeah, when you need to win against Magnus Carlsen, not sure what to recommend, but I just wanted to note that we saw Levon Aronian won his opening match, as did Vladimir Fedoseev in Division 2. And those players, they were in 8th and 12th place, Fedoseev in 12th, and Levon in 8th, entering the CrunchLabs Masters. So wins for them, they're going to accrue some of these tour points. That's huge. And for a player like, say, Jan Nepomniachtchi, who doesn't have that automatic ticket, he might get worried at some point if he does lose this match that some of these players will give him chase, because there is only one event after this one, the fourth and final event It takes place in a couple months. Oh my goodness. I see the arrows, by the way. I just tuned in, and yeah, this is horrible.
I mean, this is just knockout. Look at Jan on the camera, slumped back in his chair. Yeah, this is, I mean, what to say, Robert? He tried something in the opening, it backfired. Not a 9-move loss, at least. But 20 moves in, and it's just over. Magnus is grabbing everything. I don't even know how much material he's up at the moment. He's up the exchange, rook for knight, and he's up several pawns. He'll probably just castle in the near future, and game over. Jan will resign very shortly.
Chess is funny in this regard because let's say you're watching tennis, like Wimbledon, where Djokovic was 2 sets down. There's not really that much you can kind of change. Like, you know, here in chess, you just like throw the game away. And of course, Jan didn't lose on purpose, but he played an opening knowing that in all likelihood, if he doesn't win because of some craziness, he's just going to get crushed. So for Jan Nepomniachtchi, there was nothing he could do when a draw is equivalent to a loss. But it's just one of these funny games where it's like almost not a game, if that makes sense, David.
Yeah, I think we've been there in our careers as well, Robert, where you just feel like nothing's going to work. So you just take one risk, set one trap. You know it might backfire. You know you might be left with a position like this one, just totally hopeless. But you play the odds, you play the probabilities. He could have played a solid Petrov and lost that way. But no, instead, he's going to go down in flames. Queen d5 now. Checkmate incoming. There was a smile actually from Jan Nepomniachtchi when Magnus castled. It was so late in the game. I didn't expect the white king to sit on an open flank of the board like this, but yeah, the king will tuck itself away. This one is simply over.
Yes, and as we said, a draw is good enough for Magnus, but it looks like he will just score a victory. Jan cannot even look at the screen. He's leaning back in his chair. He's thinking, who am I going to play tomorrow? Which of these Super Grandmasters? Reminder, everybody, that everyone in this field is rated above 2,700 and well above it. The average player in the field is 2,760 FIDE. Sometimes that's just buoyed by Magnus's high rating, but not in this field. When Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is the lowest rated player by classical FIDE rating, that tells you all you need to know about the strength of the competition.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone's so strong, Robert, that I mean, who cares about the elimination bracket, the losers bracket? You might as well just win because you're going to play a beast either way. And yeah, he's going to be on his last life, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and he'll need to make the most of it. What do you think? Should we stay for the finale here, or should we move on? The other games just kind of bubbling over nicely. Magnus, though, he's going for checkmate. I think this is going to be over any second now.
Yes, and there's a rook sacrifice. And that's that. Game over. Match over. Magnus Carlsen moves on to the winner semis. Jan Nepomniachtchi sent down to the losers bracket. He immediately shuts the camera off. David, it was all about game one in this match.
All about game one. Just decided in one move, essentially. Jan Nepomniachtchi slipped in a rook endgame and never got his chance in the rest of the match. Magnus Carlsen, really professional performance. And the others would need to be equally professional if they want to join Magnus in the next round of the winners bracket. Where do you want to go, Robert? Which position catches your eye?
They all do. That's not just the easy thing to say, but I'm looking at these games. I mean, the top left between Alireza and Fabiano, there's a pawn on g5. That one looks quite exciting. In the bottom right, though, look at that position. What's going on between Andreykin and MVL? Let's dive in there because there's a white king in the center. There's a black king castle. Then a b file that's about to open up. I see the evaluation bar, David, says that white is much better, but this is just pure chaos.
Pure chaos, and chaos that's favorable for white. White's king is in the middle, but it's not under any attack at all. It can castle if need be a bit later on. We saw a shake of the head on the camera as soon as we jumped in from Andreykin. Finally, that icy exterior has been broken, and he realizes that the black king is the one under threat. The b file is inevitably about to be broken open, and no defenders around that black king at all, Robert. We talked about how solid his style is, always in control, positional player, doesn't take too many risks, and suddenly, disaster, 18 moves in, and he's pretty much lost. There's actually some cool tactics in the air as well. If the b file ever comes open, bishop to a6 might be a key kind of clincher here. Maxime, he's going to strike back, equalize the score.
And I laughed for a second because I thought about the intro video with Maxime stretching. He just did that Maxime's stretch, and you know that he's feeling it. He's in charge. This is one of Maxime's pet lines, by the way. We know he likes to play the Grunfeld as black, the Najdorf. He likes to play the Berlin, and then he loves this closed Sicilian line where at first the position remains solid and nothing's opened up, and then when the floodgates open, you see the Black King castle the queenside. It's in a world of hurt. And I mean, David, I see Rook D7. Is that the move that you have to just preemptively defend B7 as the B file opens up?
Yeah, I mean, not much else. I think you have to, but that's where this idea of taking on C5, a recapture, and bishop to A6 will at least win a pawn and just blow open the Black King's defenses. The White Queen and Rook, their battery along the B file, all sorts of checkmating patterns. And I just think Black's too slow. I'm trying to look for counterplay, but unfortunately, taking on D3 does threaten checkmate, but there's no way to break open the E file in time to get to the White King. Counterplay too slow, and defensive measures necessary, but shouldn't work here. 7 minutes against under 2 as well.
That's what I was about to highlight, that if the clock situation were reversed, we'd be saying Black has some chances. But I'm looking at the time. I'm not sure if this is, I don't think it is preparation, but I feel like this is something, within the ballpark that Maxime has looked at, because he does play this opening quite regularly. He understands the nuances, and right now he understands the tactics, because that bishop a6 move is going to hurt. Black is losing b7 no matter what. So look at Andrek, and he's like, let me just take on d3, but c6 now. All right, just go full steam ahead and don't stop.
Yeah, c6. Queen to e2 is not a checkmate threat. That square is covered by the White Queen, and no time to throw that one in. There's a check on e4 that will be easily blocked. I guess his idea, I don't know what his idea is here, Robert. C6, I was going to say, kind of sidestep, and if the white pawn continues taking, you kind of hide in plain sight, use the kind of pawn as a double agent, and just hope to defend. But it looks so lost here. You're going to be pawns down and facing an attack. I mean, even bishop a6 in some of those variations will be tempting. Or you can just take back this pawn after c6. But yeah, I love your move. Just flick it in and go for the kill.
I do appreciate what you're saying, though, that you'd much rather, as white, take on b7 with a bishop. Because if you take with a pawn, the Black King hides, uses the pawn as a shield. If the bishop takes, that bishop can still move backwards and then open up the b file. So very good observation by you that bishop a6 is what you'd like to play. And it probably is possible in some of these positions. But I am just mildly concerned about the White King, because castling remains legal, right? You can still castle kingside at some moment, but you're going to walk in a pawn to h4. So if Black can successfully open up the e file, we could see some counterplay. So Maxime just has to be careful. And wow, rook h4, not a move on my radar, but it's a very logical one.
Really nice, combining attack with defense there. Hitting the Black Queen, guarding the bishop indirectly as well. And I mean, surely the only move now is queen to e2, getting the queens off the board before you get checkmated. But yeah, then it's just one-way traffic, right, Robert? He's taken all the risk out. He'll still have c6 up his sleeve for later. Still have an attack. The white rook might even swing across to the b file to replace the white queen a bit later on. Great move. Not on my radar either, but great full board awareness from Vachier-Lagrave. Yeah, it's really unfashionable to castle these days. Players are just activating their rooks left, right, and center. Like, I mean, rook takes a7 in the other game, now rook h4, and okay, Andrek keeps the queens on, but that is not going to do any good either. Yeah, he's trying to beg for c takes b7, but I don't think Maxime will oblige. Oh, he does.
Whoa.
So did we speak too soon?
Oh, now it's a game all of a sudden. Of course, white is better. There's no denying that. But that was surprising to me because, David, your point was, I mean, such a good one, that closing the b file makes the Black King feel safe. And perhaps Maxime thought he'd have bishop takes a7 check. King takes a7, then b8 equals queen. But that's exactly why Andrek played this last move. And look out for the bishop on e7. The rook on h4 is actually under attack. Rook e8 will come at some moment, and I see the counterplay that Dmitry Andrek desperately needs.
Yeah, he played for just kind of a really kind of basic, blatant trick there, bishop takes a7, but now it's been defended. I'm really not sure. Now g5 is a threat. The white rook is almost trapped. Bishop g5 is a threat. Yes, you're 2 pawns up with white, or yeah, you're some material up with white, maybe 1 pawn for now, but no more attack. And if you can't checkmate, you might not win. Knight to c5 as well coming in, just totally blocking up the queen side. anyone's game suddenly, Robert.
And you can see from Maxime, he's bringing his pieces back. The clock is probably his biggest asset at the moment. He is trying to use it as that 17th piece, as James Canny likes to say. So knight c5, as you mentioned, looks pretty good. I'm not sure what's wrong with queen takes d5. Like, what if I just start grabbing stuff, hoping that white doesn't deliver a knockout?
Ooh, yeah. Greedy, but maybe playable. Maybe strong there. First, bishop to g5. I'm wondering what the idea is after rook f5. Does he want to take... Oh, some calculation needs to be done. Does he want to take on c3? Rook f5 is a double attack and would be my first instinct right now. Okay, 4 minutes against 30 seconds. And Draken, he's playing for tricks, but do you see anything there, Robert?
No, I think rook f5, queen takes c3 check. The queens will get swapped off, and then king d2 at the end. It leaves white in exchange ahead, so I believe that's exactly what Maxime's going to do.
Wow, queen sacrifice though. And Draken, he's all in.
Whoa.
I like it. I like it. He's got rook and knight for the queen. Bishop is threatened, and he's going to have a total dark square blockade. He's probably lost a queen as a queen, but I like the ingenuity there.
Oh, practically speaking, this does give black chances. If your bishop gets back to c5, it's on a safe square. Everything is protected from black, and h4 is a move away in some positions where black activates that rook on h8 that's not doing much of anything. So white is not delivering a checkmate. Actually, there's the checkmate. Queen c2, queen f5, queen c8. If that white queen, my coach Marichair used to call it dream moves. He just had a book published posthumously called Dream Moves. But queen c8, that's the dream move here. Let's make it happen, David.
Yeah, if a queen ever lands on c8, it's immediately checkmate. That is beautiful, Robert. It'll be double check and checkmate at the end due to the b file, but black will try to cover any entry points into that square. Yeah, at the meantime, queen c2 on the board. He wants to play queen f5, but maybe he still can. No good discovered checks. Ooh, does he move the king? I would probably just run just to try and be safe. I'm not sure which direction, but queen f5 does threaten this checkmate and would force the black knight back most likely. Interesting.
Yeah, knight d7 check, then g6. Try to get that queen off the diagonal. Mm-hmm. If the time wasn't such a problem for Draken, I would say he would have some serious chances to hold. I still think with 34 seconds left, it's just not enough. The queen is too powerful. The pawn on b7 can be used, as we're showing. And for black, there's actually no coordination to deliver some sort of attack against the white king.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine later as well, just to break the blockade, rook b5, just getting rid of black's powerful blockade of that bishop, which holds the whole position together. It's like the glue. Once you sacrifice, most likely things will collapse, pawns will start running. But now knight d7 is strictly forced. Discovered check, so black gains a bit of time. The white king was hit. And now g6. So like you said, fending off the immediate kind of danger there, but still struggling, Dmitry Draken. 20 seconds. Oof.
Yeah, Maxime has to deliver the critical blow here, because if he doesn't win this game, he's in big trouble. We know how solid Draken can be with the white pieces. Maxime currently down a point in the match, so this is a huge moment for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and he's spending quite a lot of time, and that's the right thing to do, David. But the more time he spends, the closer the difference is. I feel like Draken still, the way he's clawing back in this game, leaves him with some hope.
Indeed, yeah. When he won Division 3 last time in the Chess.com Classic, he was often lower on the clock than his opponent very early on. But because he's so used to playing with no time, it feels like he was kind of more in the zone than his opponents once the time scramble inevitably happened. But so many threats to face here. The white queen is just trying to snake her way in, sneak in somehow. It's going to be hard to stop permanently with only 10 seconds on the clock. I think this might be in its final throws this game. Although h4, he's fighting so hard, Draken. Credit to him. Every time I think it's over, he creates some threats. Now, if the rook ever lands on h1, talking of dream moves, Robert, rook on h1, that's checkmate.
Yeah, that would turn the tables completely. And I mean, this h4 move is a real annoyance for Maxime to deal with. And he plays rook e1, rook takes a4, oh, this bishop b5, but then rook a2. Like, the fight continues. Draken never gives up.
Yeah, he never gives up, but now a trade of rooks. Oh, it's going to be hard now to keep the white queen out permanently. No ammunition left to checkmate the white king, more importantly. So yeah, maybe rook takes a4, the last bet, the last gamble. And now it should be a matter of time before the white queen gets in. 2 seconds left. It's over, Robert, surely.
Although with Andrakin, I never quite want to count him out. He's going to play knight c5, so don't put your king in forking distance. That's why the king went to d1 and not to d2.
Okay, queen takes g6, and what's happening here? The knight is going to fall off. Oh, no.
Oh?
Maybe he missed this one. Suddenly head in hands, Vachier-Lagrave. He missed this block.
Andrakin is so tricky. Oh, wait, what's the material count? I see a bishop, a knight, and a rook for a queen and how many pawns? Is it 3?
3 for now. But you really need to promote now. Otherwise, look at this. Things are changing. He just has no time.
Yeah, apparently bishop b6. I mean, the eval bar changed a little bit there, but seemed like a pretty natural move. I mean, if black can steal some of these... Oh my goodness. Knight b4. Watch out for the fork. Here comes knight c5.
Yeah, dark squared bind. He's holding everything together for now. Maxime's going to start getting nervous. If it gets down to a battle, 5 seconds versus 5 seconds, that's where the point comes in. And Draken has been playing like that at that speed for so long already. But he needs to survive that long. He needs to get that far. Ooh, a5 now. Can he break black's piece configuration? He's going for counterplay.
A5, rook h1 check. And the white king has to be very careful. Ooh. It can't step on a2 or c2 because of the fork.
Yeah, so sneaky. Queen back to b5. That is a scared move from Vachier-Lagrave, but maybe a necessary one to get the queen out of any forks. And, now he's going in. Checkmate was finally threatened, but now the black knight falls. And with it, we keep saying it, but Andrakin's resistance should be broken. Will it, though?
I think it will be. And I see that underneath us, Alireza Firouzja has the upper hand. And meanwhile, Wesley he tied up the match. He won with the black pieces against Jan Krzysztof Duda. So it looks like Firouzja will rebound. That was a tough game. And this one for Andrakin, it was bad from the start. But he gave it his all. Is he trying for a stalemate trap there?
That was so sneaky. Queen takes bishop. Might have walked into some kamikaze rook sacrifices and stalemate. But Dmitry Andrakin with a smile on his face despite the defeat. I think he was enjoying those tricks, Robert, but ultimately scores a level.
Look at him laughing. He's just like, okay, I almost got him to stalemate me. I survived way longer than I expected after the king was wide open. So credit to Andrakin for lasting that long because it felt like much was going wrong. Many players would have suffered defeat earlier. And here we have a different storyline than we did a round ago, David. Magnus Carlsen, he's done. He sweeps Jan Nepomniachtchi 3-0. Fabiano Caruana trails. He had a miniature win, but it doesn't matter how long the game lasts as long as you get the W, and that's what Alireza Firouzja did. And then in the bottom row, we have 2 even matches. 1.5, 1.5 in Duda So and Vachier-Lagrave Andrakin.
Yeah, you talked about Armageddon a bit earlier today, Robert, and it looks like we might well be treated to more chess a bit later on. Fabi, must-win situation. I've got to say, impressive kind of mentality there from Firouzja, just that strength to bounce back from the 9-move miniature, taking the win with white. But the other two, neck and neck, and maybe momentum, Wesley So and Vachier-Lagrave. Just they were the ones who took the win. They're the ones fighting back.
They are fighting indeed. They don't need the weaponry that Jan has in the wall, but there is Cat, and I feel like Dmitry Andrakin had cat-like reflexes. Every time it looked like Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was about to checkmate him, you saw Dmitry, he gave it his all. He likely sweating in the sweltering heat of the summertime, but that was such a great round of action where, David, I think this memo might have been missed because I didn't realize it, at least until right now, all 4 games were decisive.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're really spoiled, Robert. We're just getting used to this new state of chess where players are just going for each other. I remember chess 10 years ago when there were all these professional drawers, players playing minimal risk, just trying to shut the doors and draw, and no more. I mean, everyone's just going for it every single game, and that's why we get these decisive results. But I just wanted to highlight one quick finale where Alireza Firouzja took that win, his second win with white today against Fabiano Caruana, leaving him on the brink of progressing to the next round. But it was in this position, white has an extra bishop. It's bishop and pawn for 3 pawns. However, Fabiano would still have been a big favorite to hold, to draw, if he had put the black king on any of these 3 squares. He needed to move to the H file. This is a check, but conventional wisdom says move your king towards the center, centralize, go active with your king in endgames. However, once he moved his king to f5, he was cut off, and here we see the eval bar reacts instantly. H4, simply nothing to be done about the inevitable advance of this passed pawn. So this was one moment that turned the game. Fabiano only had 4 or 5 seconds left when he made this decisive blunder, but ultimately small margins at this level, and Firouzja, as we saw over the next few moves, did take the victory. He simply pushed, and rook g3, the final clincher, rook to h5, now here would have been blocked by the white rook, and the h-pawn crowns the glory. Firouzja takes the win and takes the lead.
And it was, I think, such a needed victory for Alireza Firouzja. We saw in the second game he'd lost in just 9 moves, but that's a thing of the past. And for chess players, just like professional athletes and people who are at the highest level of their game, you don't just sit and think about history. You have to focus on the present, the here and now. And for Alireza Firouzja, I mean, it seems like in the endgame stage, he has been able to outlast and outplay Fabiano. So something there has not gone Fabi's way.
Yeah, Fabi, I mean, he just needs those miniatures, Robert. Maybe he just needs to be route 1, attack, trick, be really direct. That's what's worked for him so far. On the plus side, he has the white pieces next Fabi. He's done it before. If he can get an opening that Firouzja is maybe less familiar with, then still plenty of time, plenty of chances. But it's crunch time here at the CrunchLabs Masters, and big game ahead. Firouzja looking pensive as he aims to recorrect that wrong of the previous 9-move defeat.
And we watched Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He joined Alireza Firouzja in the little winner circle of that round, but so did Wesley So. I mean, I don't want to overlook Wesley because he's so dangerous in these time patrols, as is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Maxime, he defeated Magnus Carlsen twice in the end of the 2023 season just to qualify to the finals. That was seriously unheard of at the time. And for Maxime, that was a fun game for him. He gets black in the 4th game, but I think for Wesley So, winning that game with black, that's really a highlight victory for him over Yanchisław Duda.
Definitely. Really important victory as well. The style with which it was achieved was impressive too. And he'll hope and aim to continue that momentum in this final clash, or maybe final clash of the day, depending on the Armageddon. Okay, we start with this one, however, Robert. Fabiano Caruana against Alireza Firouzja. What are your predictions? Will Fabi strike back?
Well, he plays e4. I was going to say expect an offbeat opening that he's prepared and Alireza won't know, and then we get an Italian game. So for Fabiano, there's something up his sleeve. That I feel quite confident in saying.
Yeah, there's no reason to switch back to this type of mainstream theory unless you have something very, very concrete planned and prepared, as you say. I'm slightly bemused here because he won in 9 moves using this kind of Reti English type opening. Why move away from such a successful strategy? Why not get Firouzja thinking as early as possible? Now it's going to be 20 moves of theory, and the better prepared player will win. Big switch up in strategy from Fabi. I'm not a fan, I've got to say, Robert.
No, especially with the pause that he's giving right now, because in some of these positions, white brings that dark square bishop out to g5, but black will play h6 and kick it away. So there are some piece sacrifices, and maybe that's the direction that Fabiano wants to explore, but that's been well-explored territory. That's not a novel concept. I mean, Alireza Firouzja, he's young, but he wasn't born yesterday. He will have studied these lines in depth. So I feel like opening battle is a slight victory for Alireza right now.
Yeah, at least psychologically. Now he knows he'll be in a relative comfort zone where he's analyzed to some extent, where he knows the plans, knows exactly where to put his pieces. I'm more used to seeing Firouzja on the white side of this position. This might be the idea, Robert. Rook a2.
Okay. Here it is. Here's that little wrinkle. So, David, you were about to say usually see players in different colors here. Help everybody, and I'm just saying, everybody else, not me, I already understand it. Help everybody understand this quiet little rook a2.
I mean, obviously it's the best move, Robert. How do you not understand that? Rook a2. I'm going to put my opening nerd hat on just for a second here, and I'm going to rewind and jump in. If white had played a desirable move such as b5 in this position, just 1 move earlier before rook a2, then after a trade, black here does have the option of playing bishop takes f2 check. a motif just to get the bishop out of the way. You gain a tempo, you take this rook, and at the very end, once the dust settles, we see black has got a rook and 2 pawns for white 2 minor pieces. So roughly level material, maybe black up slightly, but a great position for black. Instead, after rook to a2, the rook is defended. It's as simple as that. So no more tactics against that piece. That's my best explanation. That's my best bet, Robert. I don't think it's going to be life-changing or earth-shattering. Rook a2, this novelty. I'm assuming it's a novelty, but after rook to e8, Fabi continues to play. It's very tense. That's one thing I'll say in white's favor.
Well, speak for yourself. I feel like my earth has been shattered. I just learned a little subtle rook a2 move, but it's one of these little moves that actually has big consequences. As you just were highlighting, b5 becomes available to white, which is critical because if black wants to play a move like pawn to d5, I think that backfires immediately because of b5. That's now available to white. Sorry, I said d5 instead of a5, but still similar concept that if black tried to strike in the center, that wasn't happening. Sorry, a5 was the game move. I thought that was your input. But look at Alireza. He has to backtrack with his pieces, so Fabiano's gained space. But David, the question, as always, is it enough?
Yeah, and a big question here. I've got a decent amount of experience, especially on the black side of these types of positions, and I do find it slightly unpleasant. White now has a bit more space on the queen side. White is maybe the more likely of the two to decide whether to play d4. I've seen players often play c4 in these types of positions, but it's just you lack a plan. Yes, you have one nice piece, the dark squared bishop, but maybe it will get traded off later for white's bishop. And I just really dislike the fact you're going round and round and round for ages, and it's always unclear what your plan is unless you can break with d5. And maybe that's what Fabiano's angling for. He's hoping that Firouzja just gets a bit impatient, lashes out, or doesn't find the right maneuvers. Okay, I'll eat my words for now. I wasn't a big fan of going for the Italian game, but he's got a position full of potential. c4, he's going for the light squared strategy, and maybe it will be a trade of bishops in the near future.
It's kind of like the last game we just saw where Alireza was white. It's like a bind. Black is struggling to lash out. And even though Alireza only needs a draw, it's not comfortable and it's often not advised to, quote unquote, play for a draw. Just make quiet, solid moves. Sometimes you actually need activity to make your position feel as healthy as possible. But where is Black's activity coming from? David, I much prefer this position for Fabiano. I think that moves are easier to play. For example, Bishop D2 right now. Not only to allow the E1 rook to slide over to B1, but hitting that pawn on A5. So these little moves feel like they're easier for white to play, and black is not quite able to strike, at least not yet, and open up the position.
Yeah, precisely. And one, I was about to say actually, this one little nuance always bugs me from the black side. White finds it so easy to park up a knight on f5. Black finds it really difficult to do the same and park a knight on f4 because it will simply get captured. And this one beautiful steed here often just opens up tactical possibilities. You could imagine white sacrificing a bishop on h6, dropping the queen back, getting the queen into that square. And he's going to have to be careful for the rest of the game, Firouzja. I think d5 is actually that productive because c5 often shuts down the black bishop on a7. So wow, okay, we do see that move. He's trying to fight in the center against the wing play. Maybe c5 is not quite possible right now because that pawn would become weak. But I really like this position for Fabi right now.
I'm with you. The knight or knife on f5 does look very scary. The black king has to watch out. There could be sacrifice on h6 or on g7. So this one does look like Fabiano has all he could ask for from the opening. But Dave, what's going on in the other game that I see that is ongoing between Andreykin and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave? Andreykin suffered defeat in that third game, but how about game 4? He has the white pieces. Doesn't really look like he has any advantage. If anything, he's worse.
Yeah, I think he's just missed this last move. I quite liked his position from the opening until now, but having castled queenside, which was his downfall in the previous game, Andreykin, he's missed this move, knight to g4, and this is super annoying. f2 is hard to defend simply. If you defend it with this rook, you drop the h2 pawn, and you don't really want to move your beautiful rook on the d file away to park it simply on a passive square, but he had to. And in the near future, this bishop's going to get kicked back, h6 or f6 potentially, and black's very healthy here, Robert. I don't know how much better, but it just looks nice. Zero problems from the opening for Vachier-Lagrave.
Yeah, I don't really understand what Andrakin has done in this game because he's down almost 3.5 minutes, and he's playing just objectively not great moves. So this is not what you want out of the opening if you're Dmitry Andrakin. I don't know if nerves are catching up to him or if he's still thinking about that previous game. But David, I mean, if your moves are rook d1 to f1, so putting your rooks in just passive positions, then sliding your bishop back once it's attacked, I know the black king isn't castled, but black looks like it's a very healthy position. And the white king, even without queens on the board, could find itself in danger.
Yeah, the white king is slightly uncomfortable. Often we see players, once they castle queenside, shift slightly further into the corner just for safety, but maybe that would wind up on a diagonal the black bishop could stare down at anyway. So yeah, I would definitely take Vachier-Lagrave's position. I think it's gone a bit wrong for Andrakin, and it might be damage limitation time. Maybe there will be a way later on, king b1 played, for him to bail out, to trade pieces, symmetrical pawn structure almost. So it should be safe enough. But yeah, the time usage, the fact he's got zero advantage with white, Robert. Vachier-Lagrave feels like momentum firmly on his side in this match.
So for Maxime, now the question is, how ambitious are you? Do you say, I had the black pieces going into the game, I just wanted to stabilize, or do you start playing for more? The good news for Dmitry, despite having a more passive position, is there's no pawn tension, there's no piece tension. He can't afford to play moves like he just did with g4. So I think that the likely result is a draw, but it's early, and Maxime's the one who has easier play, and I think that Maxime, looking at the clock, amongst other things, he's the one who should try to play on. And hey, b5, that's always fun to see.
Exactly. No positional considerations for that one. I think he just wants to push and maybe push further and really make that white king feel uncomfortable. You called it, Robert. That white king not entirely happy. He would far rather switch the white king and the rook on h1, just switch places, and you'd probably just be totally fine. But knight e4, he's trying to simplify now Andrakin. I think very wise before b4 landed, and just trading pieces. That's a nice outpost actually if the white bishop gets to that square, so should still be manageable. But yeah, MVL, I'm not sure what he should be doing. Maybe just centralize the rook and all those useful moves. He's still got a few up his sleeve.
But once those knights get traded and the white rook can slide back to d1 after the trades, it does just at least feel, even if it isn't true, it feels like a position where white is seeing the worst kind of go behind him, because where are the targets? In order to win a game like this, you need to find a target and exploit it. So, David, I'm half asking myself rhetorically, but also truly half asking you, like, how can we actually find a target? Is there any way we can go after a square even?
Very good question. Much as I love these types of positions usually, I'm finding it hard here to find any weaknesses. Actually, if anything, I would say that white's the one trying to get in a bit later. Maybe long term, I would start liking white's chances. Park a bishop on c3. Let's argue that the black e5 pawn is slightly overextended. The white bishop, if ever lands on b7, will start just raiding the black queen side for the pawns. I could definitely see a world in which Andrakin starts to turn this around. For Maxime, the only thing I see is potentially nibbling away at this e2 square, trying to force that pawn forward. If the white pawn ever steps forward to e3, then you might get access to a nice outpost on d3. Okay, he goes for bishop c4. But yeah, racking my brains. That was the only thing I could find, Robert, and it should be easily defended. Rook to e1.
Bishop c4. Yeah, bishop c4 is a good idea. Just, maybe in some universe, white will step on the wrong square, but as you're saying, rook e1, that seems like a fairly obvious move. Where is the follow-up? How does black proceed? Maybe f7, f5 at the right moment. I mean, that's an idea for black to move the knight out the way and try to push f5. But, whoa, you drew the arrow, knight g3. And, David, let me ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you now suddenly prefer white's position?
I guess you're looking at squares like f5 as well. The white bishop looking nice. Knight to e3 might come in. I'm going to sit on the fence, as any good commentator should, and just say it's level. But this one, I could definitely see the potential in white's position, Robert. I do actually like this pawn structure where you have kind of h3, g4 versus e5, because you get this light squared control somehow, and it's very hard for black to push pawns on the king side. Easier for white. How about yourself?
Yeah, I typically like these positions from white. I play like the hippo and all that stuff in blitz, and you get positions just like this. The bishop on g2 is actually such a nicely placed piece. It's tucked away, but also can land on b7, as you mentioned. The f5 square, hard to stop a knight from getting there because g6 drops the h6 pawn. So before I liked black, thinking that black had all the control of key squares, now it's white who's controlling some important elements of the board. So for Andrakin, I don't know how he does it. It feels like, he just did everything he could to have a worse position, and here it's not that bad.
Yeah, not that bad, but that's the first step towards greatness, towards a good position. Should we go check back in on the Caruana Firouzja clash, maybe?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, this one is in this queenless middle endgame phase. The one with Firouzja and Fabiano, that one feels it's got some more potency, right? There is some. Well, now all the pieces went away. Whoa! Okay.
Oh, tactics. Double exclamation point. That is a sacrifice. Knight takes knight is impossible. There will be a knight to e7 check and a royal fork hitting the king and queen. So this knight is poisoned, but the blue arrow appears, Robert. How easy would you say queen to e6 is to find? Looks like it might regain the e4 pawn long term.
So queen e6 makes a lot of sense. You're hitting the knight, you're hitting the e4 pawn. You're saying queen c5 also came to mind as just a way to avoid the fork on e7, but he did play the best move. So David, knight g6, f takes g6. White can back up and defend this e4 pawn. So the evaluation bar to the left of the board says, it's even. But if we're talking about this at a grandmaster level, how even is it really?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I would always prefer to have the extra pawn in a level position, just because you can give back the pawn and most likely force a draw later on. It feels like black is the one who needs to prove it to justify the compensation, assuming the white knight drops back to defend e4 now. That being said, I do like the fact that black has a clear target. You asked in the other game what the targets are. This is a huge weakness on a4 long term. Even if the queens come off, black might be doing quite well there, because this pawn, if it ever drops, would just set the foundations for the black a pawn to start running forward, sprinting forward. And knights are so bad at stopping corner pawns. So yeah, I'm again undecided who I would prefer here. I also actually love this pawn structure, I've got to say, just as an aside. The black king, super safe on h7 forever. So yeah, Firouzja, pawn blunder, pawn sacrifice, unclear. But it looks like he's come out of it in pretty decent shape.
And I'm thinking here for Fabiano that you need to improve the location of the queen. So sitting on b1, that's not going to help you win a game. A draw is not enough. So queen d1, I think, is where I would start. Keep the a4 pawn in my line of sight. Maybe the queen can also centralize further to d4 later. Queen d5 to trade queens is not out of the question, but I don't want to drop my a4 pawn, of course. So it's all about timing here, and he does start with queen to d1. And after knight c5, I do think he'll centralize the queen d4. And David, I know you're saying the black king is safe, but the white king is no less safe, and white is up a pawn. f4, f5. Let's start using that extra material.
Yeah, I like it, Robert. I think this is exactly what white should be doing and what Fabi clearly is doing. 2 minutes on the clock against 4.5. It might come down to a race. While white starts pushing the f pawn forward or maybe the e pawn forward, black might go pawn hunting. And yeah, I mean, good luck trying to calculate your way through that one. King to h7 in the meantime, given the blue arrow. Maybe you need to just get your king to safety before you try any tricks. Queen b3.
Okay, but David, you know how we always talk about how obvious, how natural, how easy is a move? If king h7 is your only move, and he played it, that's not an obvious decision. Queen b3 was tempting. There were other moves. So king h7, that's good precision from Alireza, but that was not an obvious move at all.
Not obvious. I think he got their process of elimination. Queen to b3 was what caught my eye, but then queen to d8 would have been a check and hitting this pawn on b6. So he stepped out of the check. When in doubt, just get those checks off your radar, just kind of hide safely. And now queen b3 looks very, very safe. The white e pawn not going anywhere anytime soon, but maybe knight e4 in the air. So queen b3 would prevent that idea. Some checks in the air, as well as hitting this a4 pawn.
So if queen b3, queen d6, I assume, is Fabi's plan, the problem for black is you will win a4, but as soon as you capture the pawn, no matter the piece you capture with, the white pawn is free to push up to e6. So I think Alireza, he needs to be careful here. I see the evaluation still. I don't think it's that simple for either side at the moment, but this e-pawn is running quite quickly, so Alireza, he is going to worry about it.
I can tell you take white, Robert. I'm getting that vibe.
You wouldn't take an extra pawn here, right in the center of the board that is starting to march forward.
Normally I would. I think I would, but I've lost so many times in blitz to these kind of runaway pawns, where black just gives up a knight and suddenly the A pawn runs and the white knight is too far away to stop it. I'm just slightly worried about Fabiano's clock. Queen d6, great move though, great call. And this is the key moment. E6, does he just start racing? Does he gamble? Or does he take a timeout to try and capture this b6 pawn? He takes maybe the safer of the two options. But what can black play now to hold?
I guess if he had put e6, there was queen a1 check to f6, and then you pin the e-pawn before it could get any further. So this was good recognition from both players at the moment. They're playing a super high-quality game. And now, David, do you move the knight? Do you protect the knight with your queen? How do you proceed from here? Because I think if you make one misstep, you could lose the game as black.
Easily. If you put your knight on the wrong square, if you take your eye off the e-pawn now or the b-pawn, then you simply lose. Two options, or two tempting options, I would say. Yeah, one, move the knight, ask the queen where it wants to go. And two, that idea you mentioned, queen a1 check, maybe, Robert. You would lose the a5 pawn as part of that process, but I don't know if you get enough counterplay against white's king, for example. Okay, he goes for that check. He's trying to eliminate that e-pawn. And I guess knight d7 actually is still on tap, still available next move as well if he wants it. So still could go either way, could go any direction.
But in that position, right, king h2, knight d7, queen d6, or queen c7, like, please take my e5 pawn. I'm going to go b6, b7. It's about the quality of the pawns, and I would be really concerned with the black pieces right now. Queen takes e5 may be the lesser evil, but after queen takes a5, white is a healthy pawn up, and we like to say that knight endgames most closely resemble king and pawn endgames. There are queens on the board, so what Fabiano really wants to do is trade these queens. Of course, Alireza is not going to allow that to happen so easily.
Yeah, now I agree. I would take white, finally, Robert. Definitely. The b-pawn, I mean, white is out of danger. White cannot lose. But the big question is, can he get that desired win? Can he force the Armageddon? Black's counterplay looks so slow. h5, firstly, the white king can just sidestep. And I think actually king on g1, knight on f1, at least short term, will be a decent defensive configuration. But also the white queen will step back, defend, and the b-pawn's rolling. Yeah, this might be an uphill struggle. It's not as easy as it looks to hold this one for black.
Yeah, but pushing the h-pawn has those consequences where you give white squares. So if you don't keep white in the bind and that knight gets to maneuver itself forward, the g5 square is a future outpost waiting to happen. So I'm looking at this position, I'm looking at the clock, and Fabiano was down 2 minutes. Now he's up on time. Alireza, he's sinking beneath a minute. David, I mean, just the nature of the position is favorable towards Fabi.
Definitely. The momentum on his side, both board and clock, extra pawn. This is his moment. However, Firouzja has been the better player so far today in the time scrambles when both sides are down at 5 seconds. So Fabi needs to keep his extra minute here and needs to keep asking big questions. Talking of night endgames, Robert, maybe just a brief check-in on the other game that's ongoing, Dmitry Andreikin against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, because that's a pure night endgame and also one side with an extra pawn. H5 on the board. I'm expecting queen b4 in this one. Maybe a brief jump before we come back here.
Let's do it. Let's jump to the other game quickly and see what's happening, because earlier Dmitry Andreikin was just worse, and now he's simply down a pawn. But this is one of those end games where if black did not play this move f5, the white king so quickly ventures forward to approach the b5 pawn that it's actually black who could have been in some danger. So I think Dmitry has estimated his chances at about level, that he'll lose on the king side but win on the queen side, and that's why he just brought his king forward.
Yeah, and given a question mark there, I wonder if that's because it's now easier later for black to create an outside h-pawn. Because again, knights struggle. They can only defend these pawns from one side. So they really struggle to hold a and h-pawns together. King c3, given another question mark, but looks like the most natural to me, Robert. If he can give away his knight, the white knight, for those two black kingside pawns, which he should be able to do, you would think, then taking this pawn will secure the draw at least. So... okay, the race is on. It's a sprint. Whose pawns are quicker?
And did you see Andreikin? He just went locked into the computer, and knight c5. Come on, that is a ridiculously hard find. King c6, king c4. Those are the natural moves just to try to keep the black knight away and push your pawn. He makes the wrong move. He's losing now.
He makes the wrong move, and now we see the bar has disappeared. It even says TB, table base. This is a black win. Black's knight is within touching distance of the white pawn, and this H-pawn is so hard to stop. Wow, knight c5, like you said, Robert, never going to happen. Maybe if you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes on your clock. But knight c5, I guess the idea was to trade knights or to go into e6 to try and counter against the g7 pawn, but so difficult. And now he finds it, but it's too late.
Yeah, that's one of those finds out of necessity, because no matter where the white king moved, the black knight was going to stop and sacrifice itself for that remaining white pawn. So knight c4 is a good move. Maxime doing the right thing, taking his time, and he could step on the wrong square. Where does this knight belong? Knight d6 check? King c6. Are you kicking that knight around? Wow, he goes knight d2 into enemy territory.
Wow, he's buying time, Robert. That's so clever. If the white king ever moves, he's going to, at the right moment, drop back now with his knight. Knight c4. And no! The obvious move was the wrong move. He was stopping the white pawn, but that wasn't the way forward. He needed to wait another move. Knight c4 available next move instead.
How is this equal? Oh, because there's a knight fork at the end in some of these positions. So the white knight would have been able to retreat in time to stop the H-pawn. And here we see knight a5, but come on. This is maybe equal with the engine play, but with humans at it, and Andrejka down now, he barely is getting these moves off, but he's finding the right ones.
He's finding the right ones, but he is shaking his head. He's going to try and sacrifice his knight for the H-pawn. He's going to try and catch it on the promotion square, while his king later wants to go for the G-pawn. If he eliminates the black pawns, it's done. So essentially the white B-pawn and the black knight, irrelevant. They just cancel each other out. Those are just offside for the rest of the game. Robert, maybe he's found it. Maybe he's going to hold. It still looks scary to my eyes, but I think he's on the right path.
And the knight c4 check, you got to put your king on the right square. He brings it back. I think what you said is 100% true. The B pawn, it keeps control of the black knight, which means that the white king and knight can sacrifice them. Well, the king can't sacrifice the knight for those two pawns. And I just want to mention that Fabiano Caruana, he is getting it done. He beat Alireza Firouzja. He got a queen with that B pawn. So that will head to Armageddon. So will this B pawn save Andrejka like it did Caruana? David, that's the big question right now.
Oh, blunder. He's gone forward. But now the black G-pawn's running. Oh, now it's 2 versus 1, and this is over. Vachier-Lagrave's going to take the win. And Draken...
Did you see him? He kind of hit himself. Like, what am I thinking?
Wow, he took his eye off the ball. The king went the wrong direction. The king needed to stay nearer the black pawns. And now it's over. He knows it. Knight takes... Okay, black just makes a new queen. And he will be forced down to the loser's bracket. Vachier-Lagrave, 2 wins in a row, Robert. Just incredible clutch play.
He found his form. The game 3 win was super nice after a great opening from Maxime. And then I feel like Andrejka, he never found his footing in this last game. It was strange to see from such a solid player, but he's looking away because now his knight is gone off the board, and that's that. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave wins. He stays in the winner's bracket. He gets 2 lives. And Andrejka, you see that grimace there. He's like, that shouldn't have happened. What was I thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is so strong in those types of positions where, I mean, with his mathematical background, he can just calculate so quickly as well. And ultimately, one slip from Andrejka when he fought his way back from the brink, and it was over. Yeah, just incredible. So many decisive games again, Robert, in this round as well.
And we actually still have a game in progress. And the reason why was there were just some issues going on between these two. I don't know exactly what happened, but they started their game late, better late than never. And what's going on here, David? Because it's even material. It took me a while to notice that the number of pawns was 7 per side. But that knight on d6, that is a very promising pony.
Yeah, entrenched deep in the enemy territory here. Beautiful outpost. I'm always a bit scared when I see knights like this. They look beautiful, but if black gets time, if the black bishop were, for example, already out of the way, if black gets time to play f6 and undermines this connect 4 structure, then suddenly it all just collapses for white. Collapses. This knight might actually find itself trapped too far behind enemy lines. So it's a double-edged sword. I think here it's fine for Wesley, so he can always, if need be, capture this bishop, and he'll be able to exude so much pressure on the black position, queen a4, at the right moment. Maybe not now, but yeah, it looks nice for white. But Robert, I'm going to say visually it might be better than it actually is. I don't really know what he's going to play right now, Wesley. So, but if black gets time to play bishop a8, then watch out. f6, knight takes e5, even on the cards, and that white knight trapped. So, what do you think? Is it time to bail out, to cash in? Well, I say cash in just to keep the risk at a minimum, or is it time to find a new way to try and attack? And connection issues again for Duda.
Yeah, you asked if it was time to bail, and Duda says, I'm bailing on this competition. I'm gone. So Duda having some troubles here. And before the game started, apparently Wesley was late, and so he is facing a 90-second penalty. So he started 90 seconds behind. But I think for Wesley, I would consider moving quickly. Knight takes b7 and say, okay, Duda, if you don't have connection, you are going to pay the price. Your clock is going to tick. So Jan Chistov, he needs to find his connection. He needs to find his form. And for Wesley, I think he needs to find his move.
He's found his move, queen to d2. Very nice, very non-committal. If need be, the white knight might later be able to escape if it ever gets kind of threatened. So I think very decent, solid move. But this is the big story, Robert. There were all those discussions of being late, penalties, but ultimately, if you get disconnected now, Duda, I mean, he won't be able to recompose himself. He might not have enough time left by the time he's back at the board. This could be a dramatic twist of fate.
And we see that for queen d2. No move has been made. Duda, oh, there he is. Okay, he pulls the Houdini. He's back. And we see that Jan Chistov, he's focused, trying to figure out what to do about that knight on d6. But David, even ignoring the specifics of this position where there's that knight on d6 that's annoying, how difficult is it to play when you have these connection issues, when you started late, when you have these disagreements off the board?
It's tough, Robert. Actually, I was just playing on chess.com a few days ago, and I was playing another Grandmaster, and I'd started badly. We played several games, and just at the right moment, I was about to win a beautiful game. I got disconnected. By the time I was back, I'd lost on time. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. Of course, the stakes in that game were nothing compared to this, but that just kind of accentuates everything. I feel that Duda, if that were to happen again, especially when he's down to 2-3 minutes, he would struggle to compose himself. So I'm sure you've been there too. We just want to focus on the chess, right? We just want to focus on calculating the next moves.
And to focus back in on the chess, and yes, I have been there, is that bishop a8 move you mentioned. That knight on d6, it looks like such a promising piece, but a sacrifice on e5 will leave that knight trapped. So your idea is well taken, it's well spotted, and if Duda can spot it, maybe we're going to start talking about a position where he can play for a little more than just equality.
Yeah, Wesley is walking a tightrope with this knight. It's very good or it's very bad. Bishop a8 on the board. So black does have a big potential threat now of knight takes e5. And yeah, I was going to say this is really, really cunning. There's a pin potentially on the d file. So if we jump in just for a second now and show what happens after knight takes e5, then suddenly we would see the white knight extricate itself, either e4 or c4. It drops back. You cannot take this knight because the black queen would be hit, and you would end up a rook down. So beautiful tactical vision, just 3-4 moves down the line, seeing that he can get out with his knight. So knight takes e5, not working in the current position. Robert, though, the other big question, f6, does that break the connect 4 pawn chain?
It does, but the knight still has a safe square on b5. So you can take on f6 first, as the bishop on g7 is in that pawn's line of sight, and then it can bring that knight back out to b5. So it's still a great move. Good decision by Duda there, but the knight now needs to save itself with knight to b5. So Duda, he wants to hold the balance. He wants to send this to Armageddon because he wants to join Fabiano and Alireza in Armageddon with bidding. David, always fun. And we have a secret to share with the world that the bids are in. Alireza Firouzja, he bid 8 minutes. Fabiano Caruana, 7 minutes, 58 seconds. So 2 seconds apart. Fabiano gets the black pieces with 7 minutes and 58 seconds. Alireza gets white with the full 10 minutes, but he has to win the game.
Wow. We talk about mind games often, Robert, but 2 seconds, that's going to be annoying for Firouzja. And for Fabi, that's great psychology, a great bid. Great move here on the board, by the way, knight e4. Still that pin was existing on the d file. But yeah, that Armageddon is going to be juicy. It's a day for the white pieces. White wins in all 4 of those games. So maybe that's the consolation, Robert, for Firouzja, losing the bid, but getting the white pieces and a couple of extra minutes. If he can do what he's done already twice, then he's through.
Yeah, time trouble has not been Fabi's friend, so Alireza would like to make it a third victory with white. And for Wesley, he won with the black pieces in the third game. Here with white in game 4, I'm starting to like his position. It resembles a French defense all of a sudden, and that e6 pawn is a target. You're pointing out a new diagonal for the light square bishop, and there could be a moment where knight takes e6 is in the air as well, let's say, with bishop takes d5 to follow. So black needs to be careful with some of these tactics in the air.
Yeah, it's also just hard to find a move. Ideally, you would want to maybe bring the knight around to f5, but once it gets there, white's bishop drops back. It's like, so what? I think just all of these weaknesses, this pawn structure as well, where you just have the 2 versus a 3, and you always have to watch out for these tactics in the air a bit later on. It's nothing too drastic. Bishop h3, I guess, would be met by... Actually, I'm not sure what move in that position, but bishop to f2 first. Very safe, very steady. And yeah, it might depend on whether white can blow open the position on his terms or whether black can do the same. Here, Duda might be trying to lash out with e5 at the right moment to activate his pieces. So yeah, I prefer white just like you, Robert, but still enough tension to see the pros and cons for both sides.
And Duda's keeping all of his bases covered. Bishop h3, rook d6. As you mentioned, pawn to e5 for black will definitely be something to consider. And for Wesley, it's your best move might be taking that e2 pawn and putting it on a square like d4, something like that to just open up the e-file. And he brings his queen. He wants to show us what the weak spot is. It's the e6 pawn. And in some positions, the d5 pawn might hang because of the pin along the e-file as well.
Yeah, that's just a really sneaky move. It's like you test the opponent, force them to burn a bit of time on the clock. And yeah, ultimately you might not threaten anything, but nothing done to kind of ruin your position in the meantime, just a test for the opponent. And we do have Armageddon. I believe it has begun on the other game. Okay,
so let's bring up our 2-board view here where we can see both games in progress at the same time. We have the position between Wesley So and Jan Krzysztof Duda. This one looks like it's going to change from what was a positional type of battle to a dynamic game. And then for Fabiano and Alireza, well, I guess they're starting any second now. They're getting underway. Oh, they are underway.
They are underway indeed. In the meantime, black defends the pawn on e6, white defends the pawn on b2. So still a very balanced middle game, but Wesley So with 2 extra minutes on the clock, maybe fancying his chances there as the bar starts to rise for Wesley So. Maybe tactics in the air there, but yeah, we'll update everyone on the Armageddon when that happens.
I think
I'm not sure who I prefer, Robert.
I think we can hop to it, and if we want, David, I think the other game has begun. So Alireza, he needs to win with the white pieces. He's taking on Fabiano Caruana, and I mean, look at this position. At first glance, if you didn't show me the evaluation bar to the left of the screen, I would say this is exactly what you want in a must-win game. But it seems that Fabiano has everything under. What is this pawn structure? Before I continue talking.
I mean, again, don't try it at home. Ugly as anything, this pawn structure. But black will try and compensate with piece activity. Just like you, Robert, I was super biased towards white's position here. I just thought, okay, you've destroyed black's pawns. You'll probably pick up this pawn. But black's knight is about to land on a beautiful square. Black's rook might come to d8, and the d-pawn might start rolling. The front d-pawn. Yes, it's a lot of weaknesses, but if your opponent can't get to them, are they really weak? Yeah, complicated stuff.
And Fabi is up a pawn, so that's the good news for him. I mean, these pawns look atrociously split and not doing well, but look at that knight on d1. That's not exactly a great piece. The bishop on c1, not playing a huge role in the position. So white's queenside pieces are not active, so perhaps for Fabi it was worth splitting his pawns this way. And another idea, David, that I'm thinking was pawn e5 to e6 for white. That black king is in the center. There's a rook on e1 ready to barrel down an open line. That is extremely tempting.
Extremely tempting. Again, tempting in this position. And, well, just before I made my own arrow, a blue arrow appeared. I assume it will come back any second now. And there we go. Pawn to e6. Only move, Robert. Otherwise, black takes control. And, okay, it's getting complicated. Again, he gives up a pawn, Fabi. He's just going to hide in plain sight with his king. He's going to chill out on the f8 square, and he's banking everything on a powerful knight and or powerful d-pawn.
So you never know with Fabi, but is there a chance to some kind of preparation still? The speed with which he's playing, the risks that it seems like he's taking, I wonder if he's seen a position like this before, but the fact that he hasn't responded, I mean, it's quite clear that he's piecing this all together at the moment. But if we do have a second, as this position does heat up, let's go to our two-board view, because it looks like Wesley So has taken a step in the wrong direction, and David, he doesn't have time left. I mean, this is the fourth game of their match, and suddenly it's Jan Krzysztof Duda who has the upper hand.
Yeah, Wesley has blundered. I don't think we can call this a bluff, a miscalculation. He simply blundered. The white knight was almost trapped. If you move that white knight, the black e-pawn starts crushing you, rolling down the board, and maybe he does that anyway in the near future. But right now he's down a piece, Wesley So. He's going for an attack against Duda's king, but surely not enough ammunition. So many defensive pieces around. And yeah, Duda, he's so good in these wild imbalances, Robert. I think he's just going to close the door here, trade off pieces, and use his extra material long term.
You don't win a World Cup by accident. And Jan Krzysztof Duda, he was able to accomplish that heroic feat. He was hailed a hero in Poland. He beat Magnus Carlsen in a match along the way. He ended Magnus's unbeaten streak. I mean, the guy has done so much in his young chess career. And Rook D6, come on, that's easy for him. That's a walk in the park. You have an attacker on G6. Let's get that piece out of there. The more trades that happen, the better it is for Black. White's king is still open, and White actually only has one pawn for that lost knight. There's not nearly enough material to be considered as compensation.
Yeah, essentially Wesley, his task is easy at least. He gives checkmate or he loses. There's no in-between here. So, okay, F5, I like what he's trying, Wesley. So he's going to try and play rook to D3, swing his rook across the rook that's doing nothing. He's going to try and bring his bishop into the action. It's not quite over, but Duda, huge favorite to progress right now. Knock Wesley down to the other bracket. In the meantime, the other game, it looks really nice for Fabiano. You asked that question, Robert. Is it preparation or is it not? I think he might have been onto something there. Fabi has been playing extremely quickly and impressively. And with a draw being enough for him, I think he might be on course for a positive result. In the meantime, okay, Wesley does have some threats at least.
Yeah, Wesley, he's trying to get at Jan Krzysztof's king. And look at the clock, by the way. Duda down to 15 seconds. This is how winning positions are not winning for too long, but he does play the right move. You spot on the right-hand side of our screen here. White was trying to lift that rook up over to the king side, and Duda says, not so fast. I am going to defend my king. I'm going to stop your rook from getting involved, and my knight is going to jump right on over to help me defend.
Yeah, it's all an illusion. White has one check, but no more than that. And Duda has the extra pieces. Yeah, it looks like he's close. Luckily for him, it's not Armageddon. There is increment still for Duda, so 17 seconds should be sufficient. But the other game now, the clocks have leveled out. Firouzja is even a few seconds behind Robert as he aims to keep his winning chances alive. Must-win situation for him. And it might be a sprint to the finish. I think Fabi probably needs to get the job done before the time scramble from recent history.
Well, Alireza Firouzja, he won the Chess.com Classic and is the Bullet Chess champion, so we are fully aware what he can do in even the shortest of time controls. And we see on the right-hand side of the screen, Duda down to 7 seconds. His time is ticking. His king doesn't look that safe. I think we should focus in on that board. If we can, let's just go into the Duda board against Wesley So, because Duda is making moves with just like 3 seconds on his clock. So here we see on full screen that the king has run away but has no more squares. David, one check would be mate for Wesley So.
One check. If the white queen were ever land on f7, for example, that would be the end. If the white rook were ever able to come round and give a check, that's the end as well. He's threatening that. Duda 3 seconds. And, okay, he repeats the position, Robert. He might be bailing out with a draw. Oh, queen takes e2 covers that square.
Oh, it's that old school technique, right? You repeat the position twice and then you play on. But he needs to keep the f-file closed, and he has a bunch of checks. That's the good news. But David, can he get more than just a draw?
He can, and he's found the key. He needs to bring the knight to defend, block that f-file, and he's threatening his own checkmates in some of these positions, Duda. So he's doing everything correct so far. The d-pawn will be a deflection. He's put his pieces on the perfect squares. We were doubting him. We were saying it's getting complicated, but now the white queen is simply offside, cannot participate in the attack, and this one's game over. Wesley now is the one lower on time. And checkmate ends this game.
Wow, look at that little fist pump from Jan Krzysztof Duda. He gets the job done. He went down to his remaining seconds, but they were enough. He wins. He moves on to the winner's bracket. Wesley So goes down to the loser's bracket. So let's go back to our other matchup. Of course, we will give Jan Krzysztof Duda the applause that he deserves, but we still have heated action in this Armageddon where Alireza Firouzja needs to win with white. He is a little bit ahead on the clock, but David, this position, it's anyone's game over the board.
It's absolutely crazy. Easier to play with white because of the king situations, you would think, but wow, huge threats all over the place. This pawn is attacked. White has checks via b7, for example, that you have to calculate. The white knight can simply leap forward. Who knows who's better? Simply bishop f4. Wow. So calm, so cool. Knight takes bishop wouldn't be met by a nasty, deadly check on the b7 square. That is the threat for Firouzja right now. Wow, I don't know who's better. All I know is that Firouzja has extra 30, 40 seconds on the clock. And maybe that makes him the favorite here, Robert.
Yeah, bishop f4 did not come to my mind. It looks like you're just blundering a piece. Knight takes f4, but as you point out, opening up the e-file, the bishop on e7 is in trouble. So that's the problematic piece. Bishop c5 comes to mind, but still queen b7 check. Oh, it looks scary. The good news for black is the queen on b3 protects that knight on e6, so the black king can slide back to d8 after that check. And I think bishop c5 has to be played and needs to be played quickly because Fabiano, if he's down to just seconds, he will not be able to survive.
Oh, and a blunder. Apparently, queen to b7 now the only winning move. It is the most obvious move, but the follow-up, to my eyes, Robert, not clear yet. So queen to b7 check. Okay, he doesn't play it, but now queen to d5 will shut the door, shut the diagonal, and black would be a huge favorite to save that game or hold it. If he doesn't get checkmated, Fabi's king is actually perfectly placed.
Yeah, queen b7 check. I mean, as you said, you always want to think of checks, captures, threats, but you were going to leave your king, your own king, the white king, in grave danger. So that's why he decided to keep his queen on the spot. But look at Alireza. He just shook his head. He needs to play quickly. He needs to be shameless. David, we've all done this, even if we're playing from our phone late at night and our opponent has a few seconds left. You flag your opponent if there's no increment, and that's what Alireza has to do here.
Yeah, and he's good at it. He's just super quick, super tricky. He needs to set some problems for Fabiano and force Fabi to burn that time on the clock. The queens are coming off the board. That's inevitable now. He knows, Firouzja, with that shake of the head, that it should be a drawn position. In classical, a draw every time, and Fabi goes through. But yeah, it's just a bullet match almost at this point. Knight to d3. He's still asking questions. I like it. Knight e5 check might come in, and Fabiano still needs to prove things, but a blunder, apparently. Bishop to d6. But why could that be a mistake?
It's rook takes e6 check at the end, and you can't take back with either piece.
You're right. You've called it. At the very end, there'll be a rook takes knight check. Once the queens come off, and knight to f4 will hit the king on e6, hit the loose rook. Loose pieces drop off. He needs to find it, Firouzja. It is just capture, 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 check, capture. But will he find it with 2 minutes left on his clock?
He found the first step. Yeah, you made it sound so easy. You know, capture, 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 check. And Fabiano, I think he saw it after he made his move. And that's why he just took on d6 with the queen. But now his king is in so much trouble.
That was a one-move blunder. Fabi realizes, and Firouzja with the head bob, he realizes too. He's about to win. Knight to c7 is the only block. But rook takes would have knocked out Fabi, and Fabi resigns instead. Firouzja takes the win in Armageddon.
Alireza Firouzja, he came back from the loser's bracket in the Chess.com Classic, but look at Fabiano Caruana. He's just shaking his head. He's in disbelief. Alireza won all 3 games he had with the white pieces, and in all 3 games, he was in some bit of danger. And Fabiano Caruana, whenever the time scrambles happened, he just could not keep the same level that Firouzja did. Firouzja takes the Armageddon match. He moves on in the winner's bracket, and so we now know our 4 players going to the winner's semifinals.
Yeah, just incredible stuff. Robert, what a day of chess we've had, and so many decisive games. I'm trying to count the draws. 2 draws across all of the matches today in the winners' quarterfinals. That is a statistical anomaly. You rarely see it at this level. Just crazy, crazy stuff. The players putting on a show for us.
They really are. They're giving it their all. They're trying in each and every game, no matter the score of the match. And just 2 draws in all of those games at this high level. It's unexpected, but these players, they're really clawing at each other.
Yeah, impressive stuff. And that Armageddon was settled really abruptly. Just a sudden blunder out of nowhere. And I wanted to break it down for everyone at home. That one move slip from Fabiano Caruana, just when he'd fought back and had a holdable position, a draw being enough to progress. But this was the key moment. First, White did have this check, a very promising check, but I wanted to explain why Firouzja didn't go for it. He played the more human approach. He brought his rook to c1. This check does bring the queen away from the defense of your own king. And after the black king drops back, now the winning move would have been the calm, the simple rook to c1. But is it that simple? Rook takes g3 check looks terminal, but at the very end, you suddenly realize the white king can hide, there are no checks, and white is the one with the decisive attack. This was tough to foresee, so Firouzja didn't want to take that risk. He didn't want to remove a defender. He brought his rook across, a bit of a miss, but now after queen to d5, Fabiano had it in his grasp. A queen trade first would have surely held this game. He could have planted his rook on d5, for example. He could have traded off more pieces and got closer to that draw, but time trouble rearing its ugly head here. Bishop to d6, a mistake. We saw the shake of the head after a trade. If black had now traded queens off to try and safeguard his king, then there would have been this nasty, nasty knight fork after rook takes knight check. And a fork here wins material with an extra knight at the very end. Instead, he tried to keep the queens on to avoid this, but after queen to b7, he resigned. Why, you might ask? Because after knight to c7, this is not a blockade. This is not a sufficient defense. Rook takes, forcing the black queen back. And now, how do you remove the defender of the black queen? You deflect it. Rook to e7, another double rook sacrifice, just like in one of their earlier battles today. And this would have left white up. Too much material. So Fabi resigns, Firouzja takes the win. What a close match it was. 5 white wins in all of their games.
Such unbelievable chess on display. Fantastic stuff from Alireza Firouzja. He kept his foot on the gas pedal. He finds the tactic and he wins. So he moves on to tomorrow's winners semifinals. Well, Fabiano finds himself in the losers bracket. And speaking of tomorrow, it is International Chess Day. So everyone around the world celebrate this global game. You will want to take part. Join chess.com as it is hosting a 24-hour arena in honor of chess. 1-year Dime memberships are up for grabs. To enter the fray and to celebrate International Chess Day, use the command Chess Day in chat. And we will have an interview with Alireza Firouzja. Chat, ask your questions. Let us know what you want to ask Alireza. We've had 4 matches go in the way of Magnus Carlsen, Alireza Firouzja. We had Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Jan Krzysztof Duda. But Alireza Firouzja, an interview with him coming up next. Ask those questions.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire? This July, you can think about it every day while you battle some of the ancient world's greatest and most fearsome leaders. Augustus, Hadrian, Cleopatra, Caligula, and of course, Julius Caesar. Play them all on chess.com.
Introducing Chess Events by Chess.com, the brand new app that helps you stay up to date with the latest tournaments and results of the most important games. Get breaking news, tournament updates, live stream coverage, results of your favorite players, or a specific matchup you're excited for. Never again miss a tournament's final outcome, a critical moment, or news recaps by the world's top chess journalists. Chess Events makes it easier than ever to bring the chess world to you. Download the app today.
We're about to find out, honey. We just got started, so I'll let you know.
Thank you, everybody.
Still an opportunity with a minute to play.
Hundreds of thousands of kids have used the CrunchLabs Build Box to learn how to create and build stuff while having a ton of fun at the same time. But what about something for teenagers and adults, where they can learn all the tools and tricks I use to create the builds on my channel? Well, I'm happy to say, starting today, that exists now. And this is it. It's called Hack Pack, and it's basically a series of really fun programmable robots that get delivered right to your door, where we build it together and learn step by step the kinds of engineering skills that go into making the builds on my channel. And don't be intimidated, because all these use a programmable microcontroller as the brain. Because if you can put together a Lego set, you can put together this. And it will work right out of the box. No programming required, and it will still be really fun. Heck yeah.
We are joined by Grandmaster Alireza Firouzja, who took down Magnus Carlsen in Armageddon. Alireza, first of all, congratulations on the match. Can you take us through what that match was like for you, especially what happened in the second game?
Yeah, I think I played a good chess today. The first game was very complex, and I managed to trick him in the time trouble. But yeah, the second game is just, of course I knew this tactic, but suddenly in the game, I saw that what happens if I just take the rook, and I completely forgot about this tactic. And yeah, it was an unfortunate loss, but yeah, I'm happy I managed to bounce back.
Well, let me ask you, because any loss is difficult, right? But emotionally, is it sometimes easier to get over such a quick loss because it was, a silly blunder, it won't happen again, and you had time to recover and get ready for the third game?
No, I mean, I was very upset, but then I saw Fabiano was laughing on the camera a lot, so I thought I have to pay this back somehow. So I got a lot of motivation from his laughs.
Did you have revenge on your mind?
Yeah, that was like I got so much motivation after that. Like I just immediately wanted to forget and just win the next games. Because normally I don't know why you have to laugh so much. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think, probably out of disbelief, but I mean, it's clearly motivated you and you're able to immediately recover. But going into that Armageddon, right, it was 2-2, you were trading off victories. Did you feel confident in getting the white pieces after the bid was difference by 2 seconds?
Yeah, I was kind of aiming for white pieces, but I was okay with black. So that's why I bid it high. Normally I bid like 720 around that, but I thought even if I get white pieces, I'm okay. So I bid it high, and but I was happy with both colors.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you got the job done, which means that you play Duda in the winners semifinals. You just talked about how you're motivated a little bit by vengeance. Duda beat you in the Chess.com Classic, and then you got your revenge there and ultimately won the whole thing. Do you feel like Jan Chistov makes an especially interesting opponent for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting. Our games always. I have a very good score against him in classical chess, but in rapid chess he is of course very good. And Um, I think it will be a very interesting match, and he played very good against me last time. So I expect him to he plays same or even better. So it will be very tough for me.
For sure, and that's always a tough matchup. Jan Chistov, he beat Wesley So today. We've got a couple questions from the chat, Alireza, and I think one here is about chess. It's from Herbert, and the question is, how do you train in the middle game? Do you solve exercises, or what's that process like for you?
I don't know. I read some books, but mostly I think you have to play games and analyze your games. That's the best way to, I think, learn from your mistakes and improve in chess. I think by playing a lot and analyzing your games.
Well, you've been playing a lot of over-the-board chess as well. Have have you just been going on the grind, analyzing the games, or have you taken a step back, maybe a little vacation from the grind of chess, besides playing this?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you play too much, you can get exhausted also. So it's good to have some little time off. But yeah, of course, you have to always go back to your go back to the games that you played and see where was the mistakes and everything. So you should have a balance, I think.
Well, speaking of balance, our other featured chat question is not about chess, actually, and it's from Pumpkin the Cat. I like the username. Well done. It's what is the top fashion trend in summer 2024?
I I don't know. I just wear some clothes, I guess. But,
Well, I don't know either, Alireza. It wasn't my question, but I do have actually a question for you. Is the Olympics? They're in Paris. Are you going to be able to attend any of the festivities? Do you have any involvement whatsoever? Are you going to watch the Olympics?
unfortunately, I have to fly 1 month to St. Louis, so St. Louis takes all the time, so it's not possible.
Well, otherwise, would you be rooting for Wemby and Gobert and your the French basketball squad?
Yeah, of course, but yeah, America is too good, I think so. Maybe silver medal is good.
Do you think France has a chance?
I don't think for first place, but silver, I think for sure possible.
I mean, Wemby is such a unique talent that I feel like if they somehow did win, I still wouldn't be that surprised. But Alireza, I mean, I know you're a big basketball fan. I know a big sports fan. So I just wanted to ask you and pick your brain. But I got nothing for you. I know you got to go and get ready for your match tomorrow. But I always appreciate you stopping by and sharing your thoughts with us, Alireza.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. That was Alireza Firouzja, fresh off a victory against Fabiano Caruana, beats him in Armageddon, so he gets the win with the white pieces, takes the match 3-2. And David, we have our results, we have our matchups for the next stage. What do you make of this bracket and what we saw today?
Yeah, fun times, first of all. The players, all of them, I should mention, all 8 showing great creativity, ingenuity that Mark Rober would be proud of. And yeah, great to see Alireza in top spirits there. Just the way he shook off that 9-move loss and kind of used it as ammunition, I think really instructive for everyone at home. What we're left with, tomorrow's winners semi-finals, is going to be exciting. We're here with just a stacked field, and Firouzja against Duda, that's guaranteed a lot of fun on the board, and Carlsen against Vachier-Lagrave, 2 longtime friends, 2 longtime rivals. We know their history. Robert, you mentioned earlier in the show, Vachier-Lagrave has done it before, so it's going to be interesting to see whether he can do it again. And of course, the losers bracket coming to play for the first time, the players on their last lives.
Look at this. We have Fabiano Caruana versus Wesley So, Jan Nepomniachtchi against Dmitry Andreikin in the losers bracket. 2 of these players will be out of the competition after their matchups tomorrow. And for Fabiano, he was very close against Alireza. That was a topsy-turvy matchup. Neither player could really find true footing. It just was 2 heavyweights swinging at each other. And for Wesley So, I mean, David, how disappointed do you think he'll be after losing that game with the white pieces by trapping his own knight against Jančislav Duda?
Yeah, I think Wesley will be kicking himself. It felt like momentum was turning back in his favor throughout that match. The longer it went on, the better Wesley seemed to be playing until that last few moments when he suddenly Yeah, as you mentioned, trapped his own knight. So that's how quickly things can change at this top level. Wesley has to pick himself up. The players should take inspiration from the fact that Firouzja, last time in the Chess.com Classic, lost in round 1 and went through the losers bracket, went on to win the event. So they're not out of it. Still plenty of time ahead. Still early days in the tournament.
Definitely still early days. It's Friday. The weekend is just beginning. Tomorrow, Saturday, International Chess Day, and we're celebrating an international company. We have Chess.com and the famous YouTuber and former NASA engineer Mark Rober. They've teamed up for this CrunchLabs Masters, and CrunchLabs is an educational STEM toy subscription box company. So for international availability, there's the Build Box. It's for kids 8 to 12 plus. Build it yourself. Hands-on series of toys, and available only in the US and Canada. Sorry to our international fans and friends out there. It's the Hack Pack. It's for teens and adults. Awesome robot in a box kit, whether you're new to coding or a master coder and builder. So David, Mark Rober has a bot on chess.com, has been releasing YouTube videos for so long now, a NASA engineer. Are you pumped about this partnership and what you've seen in the CrunchLabs Masters so far?
I love it, Robert. The CrunchLabs Masters so far has been a lot of fun. I must admit, I was new to Mark Rober until a couple of weeks ago. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, though. I love, the DIY gadgets, the toys he's building every month. And it will be great for everyone as well at home to learn more and get involved.
Yeah, it's funny. Those squirrel videos, those were things I've seen a long time ago. So they're really funny stuff. It's great content. It's also, great to get your hands on and try to test out the toys yourselves. And the first 500 people can claim $32 off an annual subscription to either the Build Box or the Hack Pack. So use the command CrunchLabs or visit go.chess.com/CrunchLabs to claim your offer. So David, the people, they can claim their discount. There are no days off, no seconds off, no moves off here in the CrunchLabs Masters. How would you summarize day one, what we saw today, in inform and dominant Magnus Carlsen leading the way?
Yeah, blood on the board across all the matches. Magnus looking in top form. Great to see. Jan Nepomniachtchi, I'm sure, will be back and better tomorrow. I'm not sure how to round it up, Robert. It's just been a lot of fun being back with you, back at the commentary booth, especially being treated to all these decisive games. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Oh, it's been an absolute blast, full of tactics, fireworks, Armageddon at the end there. Alireza Firouzja, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Magnus Carlsen, and last but certainly not least, Jan Krzysztof Duda. They make their way to the winner semis. The other 4 players, they find themselves with just 1 life left. So enjoy your Friday. Come back on Saturday. On behalf of myself, Robert Hess, and the Olympiad gold medalist David Howell, this is the CrunchLabs Masters. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.